Welcome, everyone. This is Michael Gibbs. Those of you that know me know that I'm the founder and CEO of Go Cloud Architects. And I am really, really excited here today. Today, I have three really exceptional professionals from IT Accel. Now, let me tell you a little bit about IT Accel. They are a premier recruiting firm in the New York Metro. In fact, I've known them now for 20 years. They plucked me from MCI WorldCom, which was my first tech job. They put me at a company called Knight Securities, where I was a senior network architect, and they've placed me in multiple jobs throughout my career. But it's not just me that they've placed. Anytime I've trained someone, Steve and Kristina and Eric, they're like the first call I make. Hey, wait, I trained this new young person. They're ready to be hired. And they put my employees and my people in front of the right people. The reason I love working with them so much is as follows. One, they know their customers and they know their customers' needs. Two, they only put people in front of their customers that their customers are going to want to hire. And three, they are exceptionally good at preparing my students for the needs of a particular client. So when it comes to getting your tech job, IT recruiters are really there. Now, I know most people that know me know I've got a relationship with a tremendous amount of recruiters, but there are some that are just so good, some that are so capable that they can make a massive difference in your career. A massive difference in you getting the job versus not getting the job, a massive difference in you being seen by the hiring manager versus being auto-rejected versus HR, being seen for the jobs that are better jobs that pay more, they can do that as well. A lot of people don't realize that a lot of the good jobs just aren't posted by HR for you to go sign up for them. You know, some of the executive jobs only go through Korn Ferry. Some of these really, really, really great jobs only go through companies like IT Accel. And I've got to say, I've never applied for a job in my entire life. I mean, 25 years ago, I tried. I left practicing medicine. I applied for 5 companies. I was an MCSC, a CCNP, a CCDP. I applied for 5 companies and I got 5 HR rejection letters. And then I heard that a tech recruiter could help me. So what I did is I called a recruiter in California because I knew I wasn't leaving Philadelphia. And I figured, let me call someone I don't know. And then they gave me such great information that I called 49 recruiters more. Now, I will say this, that I sent a nice gift to everyone. So it was a many, many $1,000 experience for me to call 50 recruiters because I didn't think it was fair to take people that earn commissions in life and just ask question and take their time. So I found some really great people and I paid them for the surveys. And that was the basis of how I got my first tech job, how I left medicine and went into tech. And you know what? I've had a relationship with recruiters forever, but IT Accel are some of the best I've ever seen. In fact, I've loved working with them for so many years. They've taken such good care of my students that I actually asked them to come on at least once every other week to go come to the community to talk about the kind of jobs they have, the way they can help you. They are in touch with every major employer. They are connected with everyone, and I have an agreement with them. My agreement is as follows. When I train a student and I know the student's ready to be hired, I call them. Now, I will never call until I know a student's ready to be hired because their lives depend on the employers trusting them. So if you want to build a great career, get a recruiter. Now, I brought 2 of the finest that I know, and you can reach out to them after here. In fact, we're going to make sure you have their contact information as well. And I've asked them to bring some of their best jobs and hold them to the end because there's so many great lessons to learn from people with this kind of wisdom and experience. I mean, you've got 3 people here that all have about 20 years in recruiting, and I've got about 20 years into teaching people. So you've got 80 plus years of experience on this call right now, and we're going to do it a lot more. So I want to welcome Kristina Marino. She's the CEO of IT Accel. I want to welcome Eric, who's the COO of IT Accel, and Steve Arakelian, who I've now known for probably 2 decades. I want to welcome him on as well. We have always spoken. I've sent them my best and brightest. And you know what? If you're one of my students, chances are, and you live in the New York Metro or any of those other metros that they service, you'll be hearing from me, calling them. So welcome all. If you'd like to introduce yourselves.
Mike, what a wonderful introduction. Hi, everyone. I'm Kristina Marino. I own IT Accel. We are a technology staffing and recruitment services company. Just a little background on myself. I started out in the industry in the late 90s, placing primarily infrastructure. I'm going to date myself. I placed Bay and Cisco router engineers, Novell engineers, and CC mail people. And I was really excited to enter into the technology recruiting industry. I had no idea what it was. when I started in this business, there was no computers on desks. It was phones and fax machines. But I knew that I wanted to be involved in technology somehow, some way. I have a psych background, not a math and science background. So engineering wasn't something I was interested in. But being part of this technology boom, the embryonic stages of tech was something that was just so appealing to me. So I landed in the tech recruiting space working for a firm in New York City. And about 2 years later, with the relationships that I made, some of the relationships said, why don't you start your own company? And it was a scary thought, but I said at that moment, you know, why not give it a shot? I'm young, I have nothing to lose. And I went out 2 years after and started IT Accel. And it was a wonderful experience and thing that I did. Everybody that went through the .com boom, we kind of were a little cocky back then. Everyone thought they were going to be rich. Stock options, just, you know, we all had that same headspace of that's it. It's just, this is it. You know, we're going to retire in 2 years. And then .com crash happened, and it was a very humbling experience. So it was really unbelievable, the whole, you know, Y2K thing, but kept on moving along. And what was important to me was not only building a perm side of the business, was also building consulting, which is residual income. And that was a good choice because it's what allowed us to get through a lot of the other economic meltdowns for having a consulting business. So fast forward 20 years, we have consultants across the US. We place people in Canada, the United States, both on the perm and consulting side of things, primarily in technology. Like I said, infrastructure is my sweet spot, but we've grown to place developers as the infrastructure and development worlds merge. We place business analysts, C-level people, basically all areas of technology. And as we go through, as we move through the tech era, where there's certain technologies that are hot, like storage area networking was hot at one point. You know, we grow with the times. And you know, teaming up with you, Mike, is awesome because again, another boom where cloud is just exploding right now. I feel like we are back in the .com era when it comes to the amount of jobs and the amount of opportunity that's out there right now. We can't find enough people to fill a lot of the recs that we have. So it's really exciting. So thank you for allowing us to be on this with you.
And I'm thrilled you're here. And I'm going to touch on something, and then we'll go to Eric, and then we'll go to Steve as well. I think you mentioned it right. When I first started in networking and I became a CCIE in like 2000, I got into it before things got bad. Yep. And then when I was a CCIE in the beginning of infrastructure, it was like, okay, wait, I had such depth of knowledge that even when the .com melted down, I was still okay. And then what happened is, because we overbuilt our network, then nobody bought anything and everybody laid off. And then a couple of years later, it's like, wait, look at all this cool stuff we can do with IP. And we built up our data centers and we built up our networks and we made them really, really strong. And then I was building the first cloud. Well, the frame relay cloud I know you worked with, and your status did. And then I know you worked on the ATM cloud. And then I know they worked on the VPLS cloud and the RFC 2547 BGP cloud. And then this was a cloud that we're like, okay, yeah, all our network and data center engineers just went and built the new cloud, which is just on a virtualized network in a data center. So I believe you're right. I think this is the next .com boom. I think taking those networks in the data centers, which we built, which were really good, really powerful, and really transformational from business, now it's going to the cloud. So I think we now have this seismic shift in where everything's going. And I know personally, I started this company for one reason. I interviewed 1,000 people that were AWS certified, and I couldn't find someone that could be hired. And I went, oh my God, there is such a need, such a demand to be architects, to move things to the cloud architects, cloud engineers, DevOps professionals, that I was like, we got to go do something about it. And that's why I was really excited to reach out to you guys, because later today, I want to talk about what employers want as cloud architects. because there's people that are thinking they're going to learn to be a programmer to be an architect, and there's people that are going to think they're learning maintenance to be an architect. So, I want you to talk about what you're hearing from customers later. But Kristina, welcome. I'm so excited to have you here. Eric, let you introduce yourself as well now.
Sure. Thanks so much, Mike. It's great to be here. My name is Eric Moravczek. I am the COO over here at IT Accel. I've been with IT Accel, almost 12 years now, if that's possible to believe. I haven't been with IT Accel through my entire career. My background is a little bit on the diverse side. I had spent 10 years in the Air Force as a Russian linguist. Came out, went and ended up in the heavy construction industry in New York City, project managing for about 11, 12 years. And then through the persistence of Kristina, finally decided to make the switch and enter into the recruiting game. I've always been passionate and a little bit nerdy with technology. I've always loved it. And then just coupling that up with getting to work with all of the applicants and all of the clients and just talking to people and really getting my arms around the inner workings of all of the different sorts of organizations, not just here in New York, but the tri-state area and across the U.S. has just been fascinating. And seeing where everybody fits and what they do and, understanding, learning who's a good match for where. It's just an incredible business, and I really consider myself fortunate to be able to do it, working with so many different people, so many different skill levels, and all of the technology that I've always been so fascinated with, just really getting a true intimate understanding of it and how it all works and how it all comes together, and where the network person meets the systems person, and it's just a fascinating experience. I'm excited to be part of this and look forward to sharing whatever I can with anyone who's looking for some assistance.
Thank you so much, Eric. It's funny. The last time we spoke, as I'm speaking to you, I'm hearing my brain is screaming OODA loop, OODA loop, OODA loop, that observe, orient, decide, and act. And I'm thinking, is he military? You don't walk with that typical Marine posture that most of the people that I associate with. But at the same time, I'm hearing OODA loop, OODA loop. So for those of you that are not familiar, the Air Force has this thing called the OODA loop: observe, orient, decide, and act. And operations people tend to think that way as well. But I heard that and I was like, is he Air Force? Of course, I was kind of home with like a really, really bad virus at the time. So my brain wasn't 100% there. Still sick, but getting so much better by the day. So thank you so much there, Eric. I just want to let people know I am really grateful right now when I see Ariona, who's I think in Gabon or Benin. I see people in Singapore. I know there's some folks that are on the call in Nigeria right now. I know we've got a lot of people in England, lots of people signing in from Kenya. I know a lot of people right here are actually in India. I see some Central and South American people that I recognize. And I know we've got some people spread, a lot of people in many countries in Africa, so as well as Asia. So super excited to have all of you here and welcome. The things that we talk about today are applicable in every country in the world, and we're going to have many more of these discussions. But I want you to know the team, because when you hear information, if it's coming from Fred's Aunt Martha or Fred's Uncle Bob, is Fred's Uncle Bob, credible? And these folks are some of the most credible I know. So at this point, let me go to Steve, someone I know for almost 20 years now.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks, Mike. Great to be here with everybody. My name is Steve Arakelian. I head up the recruiting for IT Accel here in New York City. Been working in the industry for, let alone maybe just about 20 years. Came into the big city working in an insurance job, matter of fact. And have a degree from Syracuse in policy studies. Always wanted to be involved in something and helping people. Mm-hmm. And my friend actually had turned me on to the recruiting business back in the late 90s. Hence how I met Kristina and how I got into the recruiting business. So enjoy helping people with my background in some capacity. I found recruiting and just kind of fell in love with it. I've been doing this with her for quite some time. Really just love getting to know people, understand their passions, their interests, and try to meld them together with what our clients are looking for. not only the soft skills, but also the technical skills. There's a lot of folks out there and trying to match and dig through. I think we're pretty good at that. Very specialized, niche, what we kind of handle everything across the board, but we kind of started in the systems world, PC techs, help desk, network operations, security, and we've just kind of grown with the times. Things change technically, we kind of just run with it. We've been fortunate enough to be able to in dealing with some of the ups and downs and market crashes, and we have a great tight knit bunch. We've got some great clients that have helped us get through some of the ups and downs, and I'm excited here to work with you, Mike, and the team, and to help anyone and everyone that's looking to kind of advance their career, particularly in the cloud space. We're seeing that boom again. Like Kristina said, it's just another thing that people are gravitating towards, and hopefully we can help expand on their careers. And that's about it. Great to be here.
And thank you. So one of the things that I want to do is kind of dispel some myths. And the reason I like to do this is, I know what it takes to be an architect because I've been one for a while. And my students have heard from me. This is what you study as an architect. But when I interview people, I find people that study this and this and this and this and this and pretty much everything other than being an architect. So in my experience, people say, I want to be an architect. Do I need to learn to code? You guys place architects all the time. Are your architects coding or are they designing?
They design.
Yep. Exactly.
So, and the reason this is so important that I wanted to talk about this is there's this myth that's perpetuated in the industry. If you want to be an architect, you must be a great coder, because you're going to go in the basement coding, and when you're done going from the basement, you're going to go to the CEO 5 minutes later. And I don't know how to code. I've been in this industry as an architect for 2.5 decades now. All the other architects that I know don't know how to code, but people keep perpetuating this myth. So for architects, I say no coding. I'm glad you're hearing the same thing. Now, one of the things that I struggle with is I come from medicine, as you all know. And in medicine, you spend a lot of time focusing on being great at one thing. And when I moved to tech and you guys placed me, the reason I think I was easy to place was two reasons. One is soft skills, which we can talk about later. Mm-hmm. And the other is I just mastered routing. I mean, literally speaking, I went in when I worked at WorldCom, I learned BGP, I learned OSPF, I learned EIGRP, I learned intermediate systems to intermediate systems. And that's all I did was just routing protocols. And then when you guys sent me to Wall Street, they're like, do you know BGP? And they asked me a couple questions and they're like, all right, you're hired. I didn't even have to finish an interview. But for me, it was depth. What do you guys feel about the 10X certified person or the person with 40 certifications? Are they easier or harder to get hired?
I think sometimes harder because it's like, what do you really specialize in? That sometimes, from what we're seeing, so many certifications. What is it that you're really looking to get out of your career? Some people think that the more certifications, the better qualified I might be. I think that sometimes works to the disadvantage, especially as a recruiter and looking at resume after resume and trying to kind of understand, well, what does this person really do? What does this person really want to do with their career? So I think sometimes a bit of a disadvantage. Certifications are great, but sometimes too many are a little bit overwhelming for both the employer, the recruiters, and everybody involved.
It can't hurt. No, it definitely cannot hurt. It is great to have, but there's what you said. If there's depth behind it, what experience do you have? What's your passion in technology? What are you good at doing? Is it development? Is it infrastructure? It can't work against you, but it's kind of, you need to answer the question, where do you want to go with this? And what do you love to do?
Good point. So which is easier for you to place? An AWS certified solution architect professional with a CCIE, or someone that's got all 10 certifications, a bunch of associate certifications, a bunch of unrelated certifications like SysOps, DevOps, and things?
It's the latter.
Which one?
The first.
Yeah, the first one.
The CCIE or the one that's 10x AWS certified?
Well, which is easier to place?
Yes.
That's very interesting. That's an interesting question.
Okay.
I think it really it depends on what clients.
Depends on the role.
Yep, it depends on the role. Again, I don't think it can't hurt having those certifications, but it does depend on the role. If I have an AWS pre-sale solutions architect, and they're a technical partner to the sales team, not only are they technical and have those certifications, but they have the soft skills and the and that customer-driven customer satisfaction. They get the business. Then yeah, the hiring manager will jump all over that type of resume.
Some customers that can help their business. The more certifications, the more that they're representative. This is our brand. This is what we do. We specialize. We've got these, engineers that have A, B, C, D certifications. So
also, when you look at MSP and VARs, the more
Oh, that one, there's different.
Well,
They like them.
they need them to establish gold partnership, or
They market that.
Exactly. They need to have, so in that instance, if we had a specific job in the MSP world of that would be a brainer. Yeah, that exactly.
But for a big Wall Street client, I would think they care more about depth of knowledge and the capability.
Oh, without a doubt. Yeah. Oh,
And
absolutely.
depth of knowledge, to me, it's all communication skills and emotional intelligence and soft skills and presence. And I mean, how much does soft skills play in your better technology roles like architects?
Yeah. So,
oh yeah.
It really does. Yeah. To give you an example, I got a call from a CTO from a bank, and he needed a few different roles filled, whether it was in data science or business analyst or network engineering. And I said, okay, great. Let's talk. What's the job description? And he said, okay, do you have a pen? And I said, yes. Do you have a piece of paper? I said, yes. And he said, okay, listen carefully, write this down. And I said, okay, I'm ready. And he's like, okay, here we go. He's like, find me someone who's fungible and smart. And I said, okay. I said, fungible and smart. Okay. I said, okay, what else? He goes, that's it. And I said, oh, okay, for which one? He goes, for everything. And I'm like, well, okay, so senior network engineer. And he said, Kristina, you know that a senior network engineer, we're an investment bank, routers, switches, Cisco shop, checkpoint, multicast.
Right.
For the routing protocol. I need somebody who's senior. So out of all the people in that industry, which we know, we pretty much know, everyone. So I need to find someone who's fungible and smart. And I'm like, well, so now I'm like, fungible. What does that word even mean? I mean, can a human be fungible? So yeah, a fungible person is a worker who is virtually indistinguishable from others in terms of the value of the contributions in the workplace. So I'm like, wow, I guess a person can be fungible. But that is the reason why you've been in the business for so long, Mike. You've hired people. That is why there is a major component in your training, which is emotional intelligence. And half of what you need to know for a tech position, or maybe even more, most importantly, is having the soft skills. It's being able to communicate. It's being able to talk to people, being able to have that white glove service, being able to sell up and explain to executives why you need this technology and which direction you need to go in, which can ultimately save the company millions of dollars. So it is sometimes more important because you can train technology skills.
That's it.
So that is, I can't tell you how many times that I have heard this from hiring managers. I need somebody who's fungible and smart. And I think we're very good at figuring that out because we're not technical. I'm not technical. If you speak to me, I sound like I know, I can configure a router, or, I spew out all these terms. I'm not technical. And thank God we do have so many relationships with people like you that can actually tech people out when we're unsure or we don't have, the relationship with someone that they know. But we're very good at that. I think we've been in the business so long, we can, for a 5-minute conversation, listen, and we can tell if somebody has that. And the fact that you train that is just great, Mike. It really is your value proposition and how you differentiate from other training programs, because it is such an important part.
And thank you. And I focused so heavily on it. I had two experiences, and then I really want to hear what Eric has to say. My first experience, I'll call him Avi. He had applied for MCI WorldCom, and Avi was basically, I asked him a tech question. It was about routing, and he's like, "I've never worked with routers in my life." And then I will call him Avi, and then I asked him another question. He's like, "Mike, I've never done that before either." And there was something about Avi that I just liked so much. And then I said, "Avi, what do you know?" And he says, "Windows NT 4.0. And I said, "How do you know this?" He said, "I worked on it in a synagogue." And I set up the server, all the desktops. There's 5 computers there. And I asked him about Windows because I was an old MTSE in those days. And wow, he knew Windows. And my buddy Gary, he and I were like co-team leads. And I said to Gary, "I want to hire this guy." And Gary said, "I just interviewed him. I want to hire him too." Which one of us goes to the manager and says, "We're hiring the guy that knows nothing about networking. Oh, by the way, he can't stay past noon on Friday because he has to be home before sundown." Let me go on that. It's a little closer to my background. I could explain this. I said, "We got to hire Avi." Avi turned out to a great guy. And then many years at Cisco, they had something called an associate sales engineer program where they'd hire really bright people out of college, and then they would train them. They'd give them a salary, make them live in Raleigh. And I remember that I was one of the mentors in these things. And I remember when there was this kid, Carell, my friend Alvin, who's going to be on the show next week, who's a VP over at NVIDIA now, says, "Mike, would you talk to this kid?" And I talked to this kid, and there was something in his heart that I really liked. And I said, "Look, here's what I can do for you, Carell." I said, "Look, you've got a master's in technology. You're a CCNP. You get the tech." I said, "First thing I want to do is I want to change the perception of you." I said, "This is how I choose to have you dress." I said, "Look, you like the fashion statements. You're real good at this, but I want you to just basically follow the corporate dress code. Then I'd like you to present yourself in the following way. I'd like you to learn to speak for simplicity." I taught him some gravitas, some executive presence, some emotional intelligence. 2 months later, he went from an associate sales rep to something called the product sales specialist, which is a huge role with an incredibly high salary. He was there for a year. We had a massive layoff due to an economic thing. He had another job within 3 days while getting a massive severance package. And then he went back and joined us back at Cisco. And now he's over at Google doing some Google Cloud work. But it was the point of that soft skills, that emotional intelligence, the ability to connect with others, to me is everything. And the reason I think it's everything is when it's your first tech job, for example, and you got to compete against someone that's got more experience, you have to be more likable. So somebody wants you. But when it's more serious and you're moving into more senior roles, how do you influence the executive? Yes, you need this $100 million solution. Or I need you to hire these 50 people. Or you need this technology to solve your problem, enhance your revenue, increase customer intimacy. Something. To me, that's all soft skills. So Eric, what was your take on this?
So what I was going to say was I wanted to piggyback on what Kristina was talking about as far as the fact that we acknowledge the fact that we are not deep technologists, Steve, Kristina, myself, and that comes out in every conversation that we have with somebody. And what that does is it lets the person that we're talking to know that we're not technical. And all of a sudden now it gives them an opportunity to demonstrate how are they able to talk tech to the average person who doesn't understand technology. And that communication that the ability to communicate that is typically one of the soft skills on 99.9% of every job that we work on, where the hiring manager says we need people who can talk to the users. We need folks who can explain technology in layman's terms. And that's just more soft skills right there. And being able to recognize and pivot that you're not talking to somebody technical is absolutely a skill that the high level technologists have. And
not to say that not to interject, but not to say the soft skills are the end all, because it's not every candidate that depends, but a lot of what we're dealing with are a lot of client facing, C-level facing, executive facing folks that have to have these skills. I mean, if you look at just a lot of the folks that we've placed throughout the years, you can call up any one of them and you're going to be able to have a normal conversation with them because they have those skills. And that's with what we do. And employers sometimes don't recognize that, well, we send 1 or 2 candidates and we'll send more. This one's great. And the next one's going to be even better. What we do is weed through all the muck and the mire to go and find that one or two that we feel really good about. Technically, like we say, we're not always, we're not the most technical people, but we can understand and recognize with what they do, and they carry these soft people skills. And with some of our guidance, the little things are some of the most important things that employers look for. And things even change now with the interview process. It's not always the dress and the presentation, because you only see from here up. Now things are more video, Zoom type calls, interviews with employers, WebEx, yada, yada. So, you've got to make sure that even the background and certain things on this interviews, certain things that will separate you from others. You didn't make your bed. We had someone that, didn't make their bed behind them. And, our fault to not maybe prep them and kind of slip through the cracks. But those were things that the client had mentioned. Well, he was great, but what's it going to be like if he doesn't make his bed in the morning? What's he going to do when he gets here to the office? So a lot of those things transpose.
It so does. In fact, I have my people make sure their cars are washed and cleaned before they go on an interview, because a lot of employers will walk someone to their car to see if they look clean, neat, and organized. To see if, what their work life is. You brought up something which is pretty interesting. I have all of my students write papers and write presentations and documents, and they all want to submit it to me. And I'm like, no, don't submit it to me. Submit it to Chris, my chief operating officer. And they're like, they submit it to me anyway. And I send it right back to Chris. I said, if your content is good, it can be read by a non-cloud architect. It can be read by someone like me. It doesn't have to be a network architect to read it. 25 years as a cloud architect, as a network architect, let's be fair. I can interpret really challenging, hard to read materials, but it's a bad blog, it's a bad article, and it's a bad document if you need to be an engineer to understand it. You should be able to write it, and anyone should. So the way you guys can figure it out instantly, I have my COO read all of my students' papers before sending them to me, and he'll send it back. Who's your intended audience? What's the goal of this document? What's this? So we can get all those things that are super, super important. And right now, I always believe in training talent. I'm working with a very young prodigy that I kind of hope joins my company in about a year or so, or less than a year once he's there. One of those people that was like me that'll read 1,000 pages a day in between his 2 other jobs while he's there. So, I think we take talent and we move there. So here's a question. Now, I don't go through HR for anything because, I look at these job descriptions and I kind of laugh. What do you guys think or do when you see a job description that's looking for the maintenance person or sysops, DevOps, a network engineer, a coder, and then they call it a cloud architect position? What's going on behind these silly job descriptions?
I feel like the hiring manager didn't write that job description. I feel it's something that came from human, HR, or maybe the tech recruiter.
The library of job descriptions that they have.
Yeah, you really need to figure out and get on the phone and speak with the person that's hiring for that role to get a better understanding of what they really want. It's like a wish list.
Yeah. Well, even right here, we've got XBLMA saying you can't wait to hear the guys talk about the job descriptions that say it's a cloud architect role, but they say you need to know code and know DevOps. So they're almost asking us to how can we defend. We're not writing the job descriptions again. So that's XBLMA.
Yeah,
and it makes us chuckle as well because this is a laundry list. So unless we're having that contact with the hiring managers to really understand what their needs and wants are, then we can elaborate a little bit more.
Right, and it's our job to, it is our job to be transparent. There are certain roles that I get where I don't have as easy access to the hiring manager, but I'll tell the applicant, this is a wish list of a role. Yeah. I'm not sure which direction it's going to go in, but have a conversation. At least once you get, into the hiring manager, you can figure out really what they're looking for.
One of the first conversations that we have with a hiring manager when there's a job description involved, one of the first things we say, what are your must-haves and what are your nice-to-haves? And just having that conversation right off the bat can eliminate 66%.
Yeah. I asked, did you write that? Who wrote this? Did you write this? Was it someone? Where did this come from?
Yep.
And a lot of them I'm not And that's why the conversation is important to have.
Right. And Mike, and this is why.
And what is this fluff that's not even relevant to the job itself, that this person is never going to do, touch, smell, taste.
And Mike, I think this is why you truly understand having the relationship and with the right tech recruiters is so important. It just saves so much time. There's so many organizations that wants to keep us out, and then there are some that view us as a true partner, and we're actually able to help their human resources team, or we're able to design certain things for them as far as like back office stuff and fees and all that stuff. But you get it. And, if we're truly doing our jobs correctly, we're saving time and money for the organization. Our job is to find 2 or 3 candidates and one of them's getting hired. And, that's the goal. So when we have access to hiring managers, we're able to ask all of these questions, and then we're able to align the personality, the culture of the organization, and the hiring manager to that person.
It's also having the hiring manager and trusting into us and
that's
that chance. A lot of them, there's so many recruiters out there. Well, what's going to separate? How do I know? And so that's the tough message to get across, because they don't know who we are. They don't know what we've done. They don't know our background. They just think that we're another recruiter out there just kind of trying to bother them. So
and like you said, that blind trust is so important. It's really it's why we're successful, is that integrity and trust. Steve and Eric hit upon in the beginning when they were introducing themselves. They love being part of changing somebody's life. In the late 90s, I picked up this job at this company called Juniper. I didn't know what it was, and I recruited somebody out of Solomon Smith Barney, and I said they needed to not give 2 weeks notice. They needed to give 1 week's notice, because they were getting thousands of stock options at this company, Jupiter. I didn't know. And his manager allowed him to leave early, to 1 week early, because he wouldn't have gotten the options. He became a millionaire, and I was like, I did that. Like, I was part of changing the trajectory of this guy's life. I mean, even today, it's like, he remembers, but that Eric and Steve hit upon that, being part of changing somebody's life and building the right relationships from the beginning. We give more respect to young help desk people, or just as respect to help desk people, and developing relationships with them, helping them, because they remember us.
You sure do.
And same thing with you, Mike. You were a young buck back then.
Really young.
And you were very young, and doing the right thing by people. Every conversation is just so important. It really is, and it's changing. It's changing lives, and it's my foray with recruiters, and it was simple. The first one I had basically was when I went over to MCI WorldCom. I sent emails to every recruiter. I had no idea how to work with recruiters at the time. And the guy sends me on an interview. And the interview went so well that during the interview, the hiring manager shook his hand and said, "I'm going to hire you. But not only am I going to hire you as a network engineer that you applied for, it's not good enough. I'm going to make you a senior network engineer, because you've never worked in tech before. And you're already better than 2/3 of my people. Plus, I like you. I trust you, and you can speak." And, I called the recruiter afterwards to tell him what happened. And he laughed at me. Yeah, he thought you were
said,
nuts.
"Mike, WorldCom doesn't hire people in 5 minutes.
Right.
WorldCom will never pay you more than you asked for, and WorldCom will never." And then 10 minutes later, he calls me back and he's like, "Mike, oh my God. Wait, you're right. It happened. You made history." Now at that point, I'm like, if this recruiter is this disconnected, I know not to call again. And then you sent me on 2 interviews. I was there I was at WorldCom for 9 months, 6 months. I loved it there. And then one of the WorldCom executives came and talked about all the innovation and all the great things and why we should buy the stock. And something happened with that, and the executive was there that made me sick. I studied a lot of psychology and sociology while I was studying medicine, because behavioral science is one of those most important things to me. It explains how people think. And something about that just really made me nauseous. So I literally called you guys for my friend Omar that was working there. You guys sent me on 2 interviews. One was for HSBC and the other was for Knight Securities. And both of them made an offer. And I went, oh my God, the right recruiters can get you to the right people like that. They knew exactly what the employers had, and they knew where's that. So I think there's,
I think
there's. Go ahead.
Sorry, no, I think it's the right hiring managers recognizing and having that gut feeling and instinct when talking to us and making that decision in the first 5 minutes that we're different than maybe other recruiters. We're not in it for a quick hit. We're in it for the long run. And you can tell within 5 minutes, that's where the emotional intelligence comes along. It's not normal to walk into a job. I've never seen that happen where you don't have the experience and you get, you get a better offer than what was expected. And you don't have that much experience, but this is why you are where you're at right now. And that, again, the emotional intelligence training, the soft skills, and is really, really important. It's worked for you. It's what separated you from so many people. I'm sure there are a lot of people on this call that are like, how come so-and-so that I work next to might be the same age and have the same experience, but is further in their career? Like, what makes them different? When I interview CTOs, I always ask that question. Why are you making 900,000? And there's 10 other people that have the same experience and they're making 400,000. What's the difference in 300? What's so special? And I ask everyone that because it amazes me.
Yeah.
It really, really amazes me. Like, what do you do? What do you have? What's your secret sauce that makes you so different from the person that's making 500 grand less? Like, I don't get it.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. The answer is interesting. It's pretty much the same. It's luck. And I get that.
Yeah, that's part of it.
It's luck, yeah, and it's connections, and it's being able. It's really amazing, being able to manage fires and stress and stressful situations and people that have issues. Being able to manage all that and remain calm, or it doesn't really affect you. It's you welcome that. It's coming up with solutions, taking risks. Communication, all that stuff. That's the game changer. It really is. It's everything. You can make $500,000 more than what you're making. It's mind blowing. I never knew it was a skill set. Like I said, I don't have a math and science background. So when I'm able to speak to so many smart tech people, I'm enamored by it. But there's emotional intelligence didn't exist, or that term didn't exist. I always knew like I had something like. Not, I was good at something, but couldn't pinpoint what it was. And that's the ability to read people, the ability to empathize, self-awareness, self-regulation, all of that stuff that I just thought was stuff. And as I got older, I'm like, wait a second, I think that's a skill. I didn't know that. Like, I had no idea. Like, I really didn't know that. So yeah. Okay, I can keep going.
I don't think soft skills is totally the end all either. I don't want this whole conversation, people thinking and listening to think that if I don't have a personality or if I don't not outgoing, that doesn't mean that you're not employable.
No, but it changes the job roles that you're eligible for.
And that's the thing. And it also changes with us certain clients that, working with, and there's lots of recruiting agencies that are large scale dumping support folks and that barely can communicate and just like a warm body. That's not our model. Our model is just a little bit much more niche and, digging and again, to get back to the folks that we placed in the past, you can call up any one of them and you probably have, you'll be able to have an outgoing normal conversation with, most of them. So,
and I so agree, and I want to make one point, and then we actually have a lot of questions coming from a lot of countries in the world.
I'm looking at some of them too.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure we can answer them. But it's really funny. 20 years ago, I had a manager, and I was a new CCIE, and my manager pulls me in aside and he says, "Mike, can you come talk to me? Can I talk to you for a minute?" I said, "Yes." And my manager says, "You're different." I'm like, "Okay." He's like, "The speaking, the writing, the communication, everything's different about you." So he said, "Would you like some advice?" I'm like, I love advice because, when someone very senior to me wants to give me advice, I listen. Mm-hmm. So my manager says, "Do you know the difference between a $100,000 engineer and a $300,000 engineer?" And this was 20 years ago. I said, "No, but I need to know. Tell me. He said, "The $100,000 is your technical expertise and your competency. That's easy. He said the 300, the 400, it's your leadership, that's your communication, it's your emotional intelligence. That was right around the time Daniel Goldman became the term emotional intelligence, like around 2001. He said, that's what you need to do. Focus on leadership, focus on the business skills, take those skills that are innate and develop them. Ultimately, between the company money and me, I invested about $250,000 invested in psychology, sociology, and soft skills training, and it paid for itself in about a year. And I had that for the rest of forever. So those soft skills are there. Yes, you have to have those hard skills. And then Steve, Eric, I'll love your perspective, and let's start asking some questions. Look, you were going to say something, Eric.
Oh, no, so it just kind of goes back to a story that I recall. There was a hiring manager that was looking for a system administrator, a manager a number of years ago. And there was a great systems engineer that we had worked with. And I reached out to him and I was pitching the role to him. And I said, I've got this great role. It's with a great company. He was extremely interested. And then I said it was a management role. And he stopped me immediately. He said, I'm not interested. And I said, why are you not interested in a management role? He goes, I find talking to people and he goes, I'm happy sitting down at the computer. I tell the computer what to do and the computer does exactly what I tell it to do. If I tell people what to do, they're going to run off and they're going to do exactly the opposite in 14 different ways. He goes, I'm just happy being assistant. I'm happy doing this. I don't want to manage people. And that's, and not that it's a bad thing, but that's the role that he's in, an individual contributor, he's going to be at that $100,000 skill level. And he's not going to get beyond that because he's not ready to take those risks, show that leadership ability, and be that presence for the team. So there's people that are there, that can do it, and people that want to do it, people that don't want to do it. And there is room for everybody, but that's a great example right there of what the difference is.
Yeah.
I think you said it so well there, Eric. There is room for everyone. Mm-hmm. If you really love the deep engineering, we need great engineers.
Yes.
Architects like me can't do anything without the engineers to go build it.
That's right.
We need that. And someone may find early in their career, all they want to do is engineering. And that's okay. But because we train predominantly architects, network architects, cloud network architects to me are a customer-facing role. They are a pre-sales role in most cases, or you're working for a big bank and you're designing their systems. You're going to be the CIO, the CEO, the CTO, and convince them why they need this technology. So I just don't know how to do architecture without business acumen. For me, architecture is 50% business, 50% tech. But engineering is a little different. But even as an engineer, the greater the soft skills, the greater the career progression, at least from my perspective. You guys seeing that?
Oh, yeah.
Without doubt.
Mike, to jump in, let's talk about, because I know there's probably a lot of people on here that, want want the answer to this question. And it's been the same for many, many years in technology. So how, for all the system network administrators or systems administrators out there that were touching some legacy stuff and want to get a job in cloud, but they're working at a company that the exposure is not there. How do you do that? Right. Well, so choose a cloud certification, number one, or and back me on this. So tell me.
I'll tell you how I do it.
Yeah, like you said, like you're in, let's use PBX. You're working on PBXs and now there's VoIP, or you how do you move into new technology when your company, right? Network automation.
Yes.
Well, you have your traditional network engineers that are doing traditional routing and switching, and they want to get into network automation. Their companies have not gone there yet. Here's
what I did. Yep. Because I was one of the first voice over IP people. I'm one of the first video people. And, you're working at a bank. You're not trying something new. You're working at MCI WorldCom where you're doing management of somebody's network that's a production network for one of the 10 largest companies in the world. You're not experimenting. I did as follows. In the old days, it was really expensive. I built myself a test lab. And my old test lab has 10 routers, a couple of switches, a couple of servers. In today's world, I I'll tell you the way I train my people to go from these new roles, but I'll tell you how they could do it on their own.
Mhm.
I basically came up with this super low cost program. It's kind of a joke. I could be charging 25,000 for it, but I charge 1,000 for it. And I do it because I just don't need to work. I've loved tech so much. I've been doing this. You guys know me forever. And, you know, people that know me, they come into my house and there's 30 servers and 20 routers. And my house sounds like a jet engine. And we get an $800 a month electric bill every month, and it has been forever. So what I do in my course is I invite my students in, and then I teach them everything. For cloud, what is the cloud? It's a network and a data center. So I make sure my people learn everything. Then we teach them the cloud. Then, you know, we give them server access. So, you know, on us, it's done. But if you don't have, you're not taking a program like mine and you want to get some hands-on experience, go buy yourself a Xeon server, 16 cores with 128 gigs of RAM and a minimum of 3 SSD drives in RAID 0 or an NVMe drive. On this, first install VMware ESXi, that'll teach you server virtualization. Then go build some containers. Then set up EVE-NG, the professional version, to run your Cisco things. So you can do your network automation. You can do your network build-outs, just like, because it's running the real router code. You can play with Juniper devices, Checkpoint firewalls, Palo Alto firewalls, all of it here. Then we have our students build their own cloud computing environment. They take the server and they literally build the cloud like they build their own AWS or Google environment. That's a critical component of our training. And on the cloud, we have them deploy anything, so it's not like they're buying stuff. So by doing this and having them set up Microsoft Active Directory servers and build large networks and work with OSPF and BGP and rate limiting and QoS and NAT, we're basically building clouds. Our students are working as cloud architects. And then when we train them, we give them on designs that might have 40,000 subnets and 20,000 remote locations, 200,000 employees, 100,000 servers. So for us, when you need to train career, that's how we do it. And we're focused and we're inexpensive because we also bundle in the emotional intelligence, soft skills, communication skills, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what we do. But if somebody's on their own, go and buy one of these servers, set up server virtualization, then do all these labs on it and build your own test lab. In today's world, for $1,500, you can pretty much do everything you need in your house. And then you're not experimenting at work. You're not losing your job. You're not causing outages. So that's kind of one of those things, the way I would do it. Hope I answered your question. And then I think, there's all. So right now we've had about 465 people so far join, and there's 122 people there. And I see a lot of questions right now. So why don't we take some questions from the audience? Chris, if you want to bring up some questions for us.
Yep, I'm just looking right now.
Chris will pop up on the screen so we can get.
I thought Chris. Oh, sorry. And Mike, just to kind of expand on what you said, it's choose a cloud certification. So somebody that's that's working, that wants to move into that, choose a cloud certification. Just like you said, it's be curious enough to play with it on your own. To build a lab. Determination, not being complacent. You're the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
Yes.
So if you want to be a cloud or DevOps, you need to get into groups or get and surround yourself with those people. It's very, very.
Those are the people that learn to want to get to that next level, that will have that test lab, that will have those things set up in their homes. When we speak to folks, they don't have it maybe on site in their employer, but they're passionate, they're trying to. So those are the people that have taken the extra step. Also, for some other people, it's a disadvantage because it costs. So some people don't have the economic means, maybe.
Yes.
So those, and that's where it comes in with you, being so gracious in providing your services that are, much more affordable than every other one out there.
It's true. And I also think, and we can get into this too, because I'm sure this is a question. I know this is a question that many, many people ask. It's branding yourself.
Yeah.
It's so important. So I was friends with the CIO of AOL Time Warner many, many years ago. And I asked him, I said, how many resumes do you have? Like he's done so much in his career. And I said, how many resumes do you have? And he said, about 9, and I have to tailor the resume to the job. So another example I can use.
Such a good point.
It's such a good point. So I know so many young people that are doing end user support, desktop support, and they want to get into cybersecurity. It's one of the top 5, top 5 to get into in IT, besides data science, artificial intelligence, machine learning, cybersecurity. So how do I get into cybersecurity? And I'm like, so in your job, do you do any access management. Do you give access to certain new users and, have to do that on Active Directory? And they say yes. And I'm like, well, guess what? You're an IAM. You're an identity and access management junior person. So you need to brand yourself.
Yes.
You need to make your advertisement, your resume, which people are going to look at it for 5 to 10 seconds. It needs to come across cybersecurity. You're pending a certification. You're studying that. You should put that in your top 3 bullets. Gear it more towards that access management.
Yes.
Some of these kids don't even realize they're doing identity and access management. So you have to tailor your resume to the job. And even if you're light in certain skills, not saying lie, just put that at the top.
Emphasize the things that you know well.
Make your brand read a certain way.
Oh my God, it's so critical.
So critical. It's so important.
And it's so critical. That's why I'm not a fan of the 10X certification, because to me, it dilutes the brand. I can see the benefit of having them. But to me, I was Mr. BGP for 5 years. Yep. Literally all I did, Night Securities hired me for BGP. And then one day they're like, Mike, I'd like you to learn scripting. And I said to my manager, do you want me to learn scripting? He was like, no, but the CIO does. I'm like, why does the CIO want me to learn scripting? So I remember going to Sun Microsystems and I'm like, are you sure you want me to go learn scripting? And the CIO was, yes. Mm-hmm. I was there for one day. They had an outage, which basically cost, more than people earn, more than 10 professionals would earn in a year.
Is that the outage of that? Was that like that melt security?
That wasn't the one that put them out.
Okay.
But this was like, another really.
Yeah, that was unbelievable when it went down for the day and they lost.
Yeah, but these guys were down for hours. And when I got back, they're like, Mike, all right, you're right. We actually need a network architect that's just a network architect. I thought I could have you, help out with this and help out with this. And I was like, look, I tried to tell you.
Many people
limited downtime costs X dollars. You want to send me on a vacation to go to Sun Microsystems to learn scripting? And I'll have some steaks and good wine and some good scotch. I don't really drink, but the Macallan 25 that was there on the a Wall Street expense account was kind of fun. I'll go on vacation anytime you want. But
Christina usually pays for that though. For us, Christina,
it was kind of like that. I was like, sure, I'll go, but are you sure? And they're like, yeah. So I go. They're like, hurry back! Don't do this ever again. And I know. So let's bring in some questions for the group. I know Chris has been compiling them. Wow, we've got a lot of people on right now and a lot more since we mentioned it. And YouTube must be starting to notify people. So from the folks in the audience, if you can comment on your career, if you want to be a cloud architect, comment it in the chat box. If you want to be a network architect, comment it in the chat box. If you guys have any special skills that you want to be known about, comment it in the chat box. Make sure you guys take down the email address of us. Make sure you take down the email address of IT Accel. In the end, we're going to talk about some really great jobs too. But Chris, if you can bring in some of the questions, we've been having so much fun going over our 30 years, our combined 80 years plus experience that we haven't gotten to the questions. So Chris, if you want to bring some up. Kenny Zhang, should people attempt to apply for a job with such job descriptions since there are plenty misplaced job descriptions? So Kenny, I have a philosophy. I'll tell you mine, and then I'll tell you. I personally wait to see if I know 50% of the things that are on a job description. And when I know 50%, I look for the required, like not the nice to haves, but the required. And I typically make sure that I'm there for the required. But I've personally learned not to worry about job descriptions. And I don't apply for jobs. I find really good recruiters like Eric and Christina and Steve, because they know what the customer actually wants. So that's my recommendation is, Kenny, I know you're over there in Asia. So it's a little different than the majority of us, the folks in the US and the UK, in Canada and Europe. But still, over there, I'd find a good recruiter, and I'd make sure personally that I was a master of the 50% of the things. But now I'd love you guys to answer that as well. What's your recommendation on these job descriptions that look kind of ridiculous?
It's a very tricky road to navigate. And again, which, like you said, Mike, it's kind of the reason why we exist, why recruiters exist. When you don't know what keywords HR has set up in their applicant tracking system to be the keywords that are going to get picked up for each particular role. So, even if you have 50% of the must-have certs in a job description, if you don't have the right 50%, the machine is not going to pick you up. That's the value that a recruiter adds, and that's why we're here. We're able to look at a resume. We know that a company is looking for ABC, even though their job description has A through Z and then AA through JJ. It's like we only need to focus on, item A, item D, and item X. Everything else is gravy. Yeah. And from that point forward, that's where you use the salesmanship of a Christina, of a Steve, of myself, being able to get on the phone and say, hey, Mike, I've got somebody here who you need to talk to. I send over the resume. You look at it. I'm like, yeah, but if you look at what he's doing here at Moody's, he's doing this, 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 and this. And you're like, oh, that's the guy. You're right. Let me talk to him. And then from there, that's how you get in the door. You can't necessarily always do that just by blindly submitting yourself into a job portal. It's challenging. It's a very, very hard question to answer because I don't want to say don't submit yourself to a job, but I also want to say, like Mike said, reach out, talk to some people, talk to some recruiters. Hey, by chance, are you working with this company? Because I see an opportunity that I would love to submit myself to. That's like probably the best route that you can take.
I agree. And
you don't know what the internal recruiters are like, working for the organizations where they're, scrubbed. They go into this black hole and, what's their work ethic, the folks internally, opposed to, it's a little different when you have an independent recruiting team opposed to the internal. Not to say that they're not hard workers, but those things can slip through the cracks. How on it are they?
Yeah.
Who's working on these recs for these hiring managers? Who's taking that care and that passion and that extra little something to find that, hire?
You also need to remember that these internal recruiters aren't just sitting down talking to the hiring managers all day. They're doing onboarding for new employees. They're doing other HR functions. They're fielding questions from other employees about how many vacation days do they have. They have to submit a report to. What we do all day long is talk to hiring managers and we talk to applicants. That's our world. That's our life. That's our existence. We don't have those other distractions. That's why we specialize in what we specialize in.
See, that's why you guys are so good. I spoke to 50 recruiters. I've asked every hiring manager in 20 years, what do you want in the perfect employee, to create a list? So going back to these job descriptions, then I'm going to get to the next question. And Alonzo, I love Alonzo that was here. Alonzo Coleman, who was up, and he was like 75 years Node.js and Java programming for an architect. Alonzo is an exceptionally good cloud architect. In fact, he's so good that we're going to do a free AWS Certified Solution Architect Associate course, a live boot camp for free. I've seen the courses that exist from the course providers, and I can't let anybody pay for something like that. So we're going to do it completely free on October 3rd because we want to know that you get access to quality training, and we'll do it free. We're not going to let people that have never worked in tech, that have a webcam, basically provide, paid training, because if you don't know the job, you can't teach the job. So we're going to do some more of that for free. But, Gartner, as you guys know real well, and CIO Magazine, which we all read to basically see what our peers are thinking, Gartner started looking at these job descriptions and like, this is a joke. What is this? Let's go ask CIOs, what is it that you actually want? And here's what CIOs said. They said a cloud architect is someone that leads the cultural change for cloud adoption. They develop and coordinate a cloud architecture. They develop a cloud strategy and coordinate the adoption process. They find talent with the necessary skills. They assess applications, software, and hardware. They create a cloud broker team. They establish best practices for the cloud across the company. They select cloud providers and vet third-party services. They oversee governance and mitigate risk. They work closely with the IT security people to monitor privacy and develop incident response procedures. They manage budgets and estimate costs and operate at scale. Now, I got to tell you, this is what I do as a cloud architect. This is what my job has been. Is that what you're hearing from the average employer? Could you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Is that basically what your employers are looking for? Or are they looking for something different?
No, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, that's essentially what everybody wants. So.
And that's the CIOs, the people that are basically purchasing. Hey, I'm willing to pay for this person. This is what I want. So don't ask a certification provider, what certification should I get? Ask the person that's going to hire you. Ask the person that's got the budget that wants you. So, Chris, bring up the next question. We have such an expert panel with these wonderful folks. I just want to make sure we really help the community out. Shapur, so good to hear from you. But Mike, how do you apply for a job opportunity, for example, at LinkedIn when the company asking for so many non-relevant skills to a cloud architect? Well, Shapur, I wouldn't. I'd go personally. I don't apply for stuff. I find myself 2 or 3 really good recruiters. And why do I mean 2 or 3? I have one set of recruiters in the New York Metro, and it's this team. It's IT Accel. If I also would possibly deal with a Korn Ferry for certain other type of executive roles that only go through Korn Ferry. Now, I'd rather work with Steve and Christina and Eric because I know them forever. But there are certain types of C-level roles that typically go through Korn Ferry. So, have a recruiter for that. Have a recruiter in the tech space. IT Accel is the best I know, and that's why I use them for everything. And if you're a medical person like me and you're applying for a medical job, heck, you know what? Get a medical recruiter that's really good. But the key is don't just apply for things that are there. Try and figure it out. Look at that job description. See if you know anybody that works at that company. See if one of the people that you know works at that company. See what they have to say. Then tune your resume to make it what's going to be relevant to them based upon the insight. I'm a fan of the art of war. If you know yourself and you know your enemy, you will always be victorious. If you know yourself and not your enemy, for every win there'll be one loss. If you know yourself and not if you know you're not yourself but know your enemy, for every win there'll be one loss. But if you don't know yourself and don't know your enemy, you will always lose. So get intel, spy, develop those emotional intelligence so you can ask those questions. Do a polite interrogation so nobody even knows. Then tune your portfolio and then go attack it with something very specific. LinkedIn, find recruiters, reach out to IT Accel. I recommend them. I really do. I wouldn't bring people on my show. We got between 50 and 100,000 people that come to us each month. And when I bring people in, whether it was Andrea Caza 2 weeks ago or Alvin DaCosta, VP over at NVIDIA, who's coming next week, or these recruiters that I'm going to have here every other week, or more if they want, because they're so good. Find a team like this that's connected with employers, that know what employers want, and work with a good team. Yes.
Mike, I so appreciate the love, but let's call a spade here. There are certain jobs and certain companies that refuse to work with recruiters, and they're really good jobs. What I tell people, applicants, and people that I have relationships with, if you find something on LinkedIn, you hit the nail on the head. Network, backdoor it, or come to me. I might know someone in there. I was just recently, the head of infrastructure for Wells Fargo reached out to me and said, my nephew is an InfoSec right now. It's an IAM. Do you know anybody? I've done a lot of work in that field, and I reached out to someone that I believe is now a head of IAM for one of the financials. And I called him up. He said, I'm not paying a fee. And so I said, all right, I don't care. Because I'm going to head up the head of Wells Fargo and come back and be like, okay, it's like, I hooked your nephew up and he'll take care of me. So that's great. And that's what relationships are all about. So I tell a lot of people, applicants, reach out to people, network. You might know someone in the company. You might be able to get a better understanding of the job description so you can tailor your resume. If you have a recruiter you trust, because that blind trust is important, and having that relationship, let them know, this is what I'm looking to do. There's a role here. Do you know anybody? Can you refer me in? You know what? That person, when you help somebody out, they remember. Yes. They come back. They want to help you back. And especially in bad times. So it's. Most people generally just have that way about them. They remember. And So yeah, we're not the be all and end all. We're not the top vendor at every company. I wish we were. I feel we should be because we really get the business, and but we're not. So even though we are, we're great at what we do, and we have a really good understanding of technology and relationships. It's like you said, just kind of be resourceful and make sure you network.
Another thing is keeping organized. I tell people, I mean, if we can't help you, you see something on LinkedIn, you're speaking to dozens of recruiters, different opportunities. I mean, until you connect with someone that you feel good about, but you don't want to just start blasting your resume all over the stratosphere. It could make you kind of look bad to your disadvantage. Double submittal, just throwing it out anywhere and everywhere and not keeping note. I speak to so many candidates out there that are looking for employment that, well, I have this opportunity, and we of course don't want to submit their resume if we think they're qualified, if they've already been represented. So we ask those questions, and more than likely a lot of them, and it comes back to maybe the person too, and the skills and the soft and the people skills, that they don't keep notes. You got to keep track of where you're being sent.
It's true. Yeah. And I feel bad. So many, the applicants are
getting just send happy. I'm on my computer at night.
You pulled the thought right out of my head, Steve. That's what I was going to say next.
That's a job in itself, keeping track of the recruiters that call you.
Oh my God, yes.
Jobs,
be organized.
They don't tell you whether.
Otherwise, what are you going to do when you get to a job?
Yeah.
So, and those are the people that I can sense that I can't maybe help.
So with that, also keep in mind, don't think that because you submitted your resume to company XYZ, that by you coming through us to submit you to XYZ and not telling us, don't think that that's going to give you a better shot. It's going to do the complete opposite.
In fact, the only time HR should even know, my experience with this is, you go for an interview, you meet with the hiring manager. The hiring manager says, yes, I'm going to hire you. Then the hiring manager says to you, hey, by the way, it's a formality. I got to get you to fill out this application. So then I tell HR, I want to hire this person. I want to use a comp ratio of 1.4 because they're so emotionally intelligent, so likable. They've got so much experience. I want to pay them 1.4 times the average for this position. HR then comes back to me with the offer. I then call the client. And then the client's probably going to get a rejection letter from HR 6 months later, even though they're already hired and having a great job, because the difference between being placed directly from the hiring manager versus the HR's automatic tracking system that's going to just applicant tracking system that's going to basically just knock them out for the wrong keywords.
Right. And it's what's interesting is I feel like the industry is coercing people to put every skill set on their resume because they know that the algorithms are looking for these keywords and they don't want to miss an opportunity or a job. So it's like a total, cluster.
So when you get a resume that looks like a cross between a dog walker and a software programmer and a DevOps engineer and an architect and a network person and a PC person and a Linux admin person, what do you do with that? Mm-hmm. What do you do with a resume like that as a recruiter?
You strip it down. You need to figure out what you specialize in. You need to figure out what your true passion and where you think that employers are going to hire you for mainly a lot of the skills that you possess. And then what you can kind of build on. So if you're not building a resume about your brand and what you do, sure, you can be a dog walker on the side. Sure, you can be a real estate agent. But you as a tech professional, how do you...
Yeah.
I totally agree, but I was referring to what do you guys do when you see a resume that's someone that's all over the place? How do you work with that resume?
Oh, that's
so it depends. So if within that, I'm going to use the word mess. Okay. So if within that mess, you're able to see what you're looking for, that's when you have a real conversation with the applicant and you tell them, you've got to turn this, you got to trim this down. We need to isolate this particular skill set because that's what's applicable. Never mind the dog walker, never mind the real estate. Let's just focus on the DevOps or the cloud architecture skills. That's what we're going to turn your resume into. A lot of times you'll start to get some pushback from the applicant. And they're going to be like, oh, I don't have the time. Well, listen, if you want this job, this is what you need to do. You're doing yourself a disservice because people are going to look, they're going to think that you're all over the place. You don't have the ability to focus and you're hurting yourself. So it's really going to be having that conversation with somebody. And to all the applicants out there, you got to understand that if we're asking you to update your resume, it is for a reason. We are not saying it for the sake of it. We're not.
We're people too. I mean, we've got bazillions of resumes and certain skills. Let us send you a blind type of a resume that you can kind of maybe even use as a gauge to kind of see, hey, this is what a successful
Right.
XYZ type person comes. Of course we scrub it, but we've got we can help. But we need people to be receptive to that and understand instead of the pushback. We don't want you to have 5 different versions of yourself, but you got to work with us in order for us to work with you.
And you don't want your resume getting in front of me on Eric's desk. He's a linguist, so holy moly! Right.
It's really funny.
We send all that to we send that to Eric so he can really gets fired up.
He looks through it. I love that. What I also advising people, then we'll take the next question, is don't make up a job like AWS Cloud Practitioner. It's a certification, not a job. And when we say working as an AWS certified solution architect or an AWS Cloud Practitioner, it signals the hiring manager or the recruiter to know it's fake. We can't hire fake. So there's one thing to really highlight your skills. In fact, one of the best collaboration companies in the world wanted to bring me on as a lead architect in their healthcare division. And when I interviewed with the person running that division, she says to me, I'd love you to be on my team, but I really want you to be on the distinguished architect team. And I said, oh, should I send you my technical resume instead? And she starts laughing and she's like, look, I don't need a resume on you. You were referred to by an interior executive who then held you to speak to me. I'm already telling you, you're not right. I spoke to them on the distinguished architect team. And they were so nice. And then I was like, but I can't do this. I've got my cloud architect career development program. I can't. So this was like in the first 2 weeks we started our program. I didn't know whether it was going to be successful. And within a month, we had so many students that it was like, I can't just give refunds to my students and go about my life. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. And my students are getting hired every day. So it's super, super exciting. Chris, if you want to, and I know there's a nurse in here that I want to make sure, we get to your questions because I know a lot about coming from healthcare and moving into tech. So I promise you will do that. I promise you will also talk about some employers. Okay, Robert, what kinds of employers are you able to place someone who's just completed Mike's program for a cloud architect? Who hires a cloud architect? Let me interpret that.
Can I jump in?
Yes, please.
Oh, okay. So for us, we don't just deal with one sector to place people at. We have clients from all different, all different spectrums, from financial companies, banks, hedge funds, bars, law firms, and just pretty much wherever our relationships go, we follow them. So there was a time where we were very heavy into retail, into the retail space. Placing CISOs and information security, cybersecurity, PCI compliance, and GDPR. So that a lot of our clients for some reason went into retail. So I would say to answer your question, where we can place a cloud architect, there are so many different companies hiring right now. Possibly if you're looking to get into MSP and that would be a great step. Some MSPs want MSP experience. So you might have to deal with that hurdle if you don't, but there are a lot of companies, if you do have, if you do have that customer focused, customer driven mentality and you're outgoing and have, the cloud certification and skills, I think that would be a great start in your career. And it also exposes you to so many different clients, and you gain a lot of different skills that way. You're just not kind of pigeonholed in one client doing one thing every day. So I love the MSP business for young people because you're able to just gain that much more experience in one particular job. It's awesome. Yeah, different scenarios, different people, different. It's a little running around. Well, not now because of work from home is so prevalent. But I think it's really it's great. It's great at any time in your career.
And I want to make this clear. People think that they can only work for Google and Amazon and Azure and Oracle and Palo Alto. That may be 10% of all the jobs that exist out there. And I got to tell you, a bank is going to pay you more than one of these tech companies, and you're going to have a better job. A global retailer needs a cloud provider. Organizations that stream online need cloud architects. So pretty much every business that's migrating to the cloud, which is everybody, needs a cloud architect, because you're not going to have Amazon or Google or Microsoft design your cloud for you, because they're going to design what's basically in their best financial interest. So you want to leverage their expertise. You want to leverage their extreme knowledge of their own systems. But there's no such thing as just AWS now. There's no such thing as just Google. It's all hybrid cloud, multi-cloud, Nutanix clouds, OpenStack, Ansible clouds, combined with Azure, AWS, Google, Dell, Palo Alto, Cisco's cloud. I mean, there are more clouds than you can think of. And you know what? Many organizations are running their own clouds, Nutanix clouds or or OpenStack, Ansible clouds. Many of my students have recently graduated and gone and become senior cloud architects at IBM with the OpenStack Ansible cloud. So that's pretty awesome. So Robert, I hope we were able to answer your question there.
Robert, I think you'll have more of a problem trying to keep job offers from coming across your desk, and recruiters that are calling you every single day. 50 recruiters that will be calling you every day once you have the certifications and you're in cloud. It's wild what's going on out there. We have candidates that we recruit, and if we can't get them out on an interview within 24 to 48 hours, they have 5 offers and they're gone. I've not seen this since the .com era. I don't know if we're back in the roaring 20s.
Feels that way.
Just to read this to you, it's projected, IT technology is projected to grow 13% from 2020 to 2030, faster than the average of all occupations. And the demand for these workers will stem from greater emphasis on cloud computing, the collection and storage of big data and information security. And most demand tech skills for 2021 are cybersecurity, cloud, DevOps, AI and machine learning, augmented reality, AR, and development and blockchain. So you'll have more offers than you'll know what to do with.
So, and that's been my experience. Once you get your resume focused, and you get your knowledge focused, and the brand is focused, and your social media supports the brand, and you don't have any negative social media that says, I don't like these people because they're different than me. Because remember, 50% of the world thinks differently than you do. So make sure you've got something warm and welcoming that loves everyone. That's all positivity, energy, enthusiasm, passion, all of it. So I'm also just going to define the term MSP, or managed service provider. They could be anything from like an NTT Data to an AT&T to a Verizon to a small value-added reseller, where basically they sell and design things for an organization. Just in case someone didn't know that. It looked like we had a question from the nurse that popped up on the screen. Will, you're currently a nurse. I love that. And your passion is tech. I love that even more. And I'm going to speak to this because I got a lot of personal experience here.
Yeah.
What are the best avenues to take with your skills?
Here we go.
So Will, I paid my way through school by being an EMT. Then I became a paramedic. Then I worked as a nurse in the ER for a period of time. And while I was working as a nurse, I worked on ambulances, taking people from critical care facility to other critical care facility. I became a nurse practitioner. Then I had my own internal medicine office. In the US, we nurse practitioners were practicing I had my own office. We would do minor surgeries. We prescribed. So I had my own office and I loved it. But I love tech, Will. In fact, I loved it so much, it was kind of crazy. Back in 1999, I was spending $30,000 a year on routers, switches, and computers because it was cool. And I didn't even play video games, but I had a bunch of Greek relatives that all loved to play video games. So I was tuning computers, overclocking them, finding weird cooling strategies, bringing in expensive ACs to the room to try and overclock these miserably slow things at the time. And I just loved it. So what did I do, Will? I'll tell you. First thing I did is I thought, hey, wait, certification's the path to success. It wasn't. So I took this 5-day, $5,000 Microsoft Certified Systems Engineer boot camp, got certified. Then I locked myself in a room for 4 days, became a Cisco Certified Network Associate, and that was good. After that, I took this 10-day, $11,000 Cisco Certified Network Professional boot camp. Passed it all in the 10 days, $11,000. That was a lot of money in those days. Still is, you know.
And it was rare to get your CCIE in those days. There was only
Yep.
a few thousand people.
Yeah, I was like the 6,000th guy to pass that out of the 3 million people that attempted it. Because in those days, it was a 2-day exam, not like today's 1-day exam.
That was amazing.
It was a 2-day exam.
That certification was like, forget about it.
It was $150 an hour back in 1999 that we were getting paid. In fact, you guys got me hired at Night Securities. And I interviewed with them, and then I went over to California to take the CCIE. And I remember calling you and them, hey, wait, now I'm a CCIE. And they were really excited. So there's that. So the key eWill, if you're a nurse, first, get used to technology. Now, eWill, we have a really great program that takes people from a non-tech background and puts them into tech background. And Chris can drop the link for that, as well as a specialty coupon for that, because if you're there. Now, the second side of this is eWill. You've got, what you have is this very strategic advantage. In nursing, they call it therapeutic communication. That's called emotional intelligence to the rest of us. In nursing, you're basically abused. You're abused by doctors, you're abused by other nurses, you're abused by patients and their families.
Wow.
You manage to learn how to take that daily abuse and manage to show up with a smile and take care of people. And you understand that eWill, that when someone's sick and dying, they're not necessarily pleasant. And you're emotionally intelligent enough to do that, which is great. Now, what other skills come from nursing? You know, the nurse is not like, you know, unless you're working in a one-to-one unit like the surgical ICU or something like that, where you've got more than one person. So, or OR recovery. So you're going to have multiple people. So as a nurse, you're forced to be able to look at things from amorphous demands. And a nurse, you have to think on the fly. So as a nurse, you know, I might tell my nurses titrated nitrogen to a systolic BP of 90. Now, I didn't say how to do it. I didn't say, you know, go up by 10 mics or 3 mics at a time until we get to appropriate blood. I just say, do it. And then the nurse calls me in the middle of the night and says, my patient's crashing. I want to do this. Are you okay with it? They even do the thinking for me. So the nurse is effectively working as an engineer and an architect at the same time. So when the nurse interviews a client or patient, whichever term you use based upon when you were taught, how are you today? What makes your pain better? What makes your pain worse? And then you do an examination, listen to the heart, listen to the lungs, listen to the bowel, palpate the belly, those kind of things. That's the job of the architect. What does a cloud architect do? I go meet with the CEO and figure out what his business goals or her business goals are and strategy. Then when I'm done that, the next thing that I do is I ask some questions, more questions, just like you do as a nurse. Then after that, I assess the client's systems. What routers, switches, servers, networking you have. No different than palpating a patient's belly and listening to their lungs. Then I make a diagnosis. And, you know, in nursing, they have a nursing diagnosis, but, you know, fluffy to me. In medicine, we have a real diagnosis, pharyngitis, as opposed to impaired, whatever they would call it in medicine, but it doesn't matter. And then we give a treatment plan. As a nurse, you're administering the meds. And you know what your treatment plan is as an architect? You basically design the system for a customer. So if you want to be a nurse and you work with tech, I want you to play to your strengths. Here's my advice, and then I want you to ask the panel, because they are experts at getting people hired. First, pick a technology that you love and get great at it. Then get certified in that technology. Now, I don't want you to get 4 associate certifications. I want you to go for an associate and straight to a professional. Then I want you to think about what else is truly needed in that industry and get another professional certification. So for example, if I build a cloud security architect, I have them do the Certified Solution Architect Professional and something like a CISSP or a CEH Master or something that shows good expertise in 2 things. Now for you, eWill, you've got a secret trump card. You've got something magic going on. You're a nurse. And you know where I made most of my living, where I had the best career? When I did technology designs for healthcare organizations. Because now you are what's called an industry expert. So go become a cloud architect, a network architect, whatever you like. If you want to be a cloud architect, we'd love to work with you. And Chris from my team will put our phone number in case you've got calls, as well as they'll also put every other numbers for any organizations you guys need. So be great at it. Be an expert at healthcare. Learn about electronic health records. Learn about practitioner order entry systems. Learn about, you know, RFID tagging of IV pumps so you can find things. Learn the things that are going to make your healthcare industry better. Combine your expertise as a nurse with a technology skill set, and you will be amazing. Look, I'm not going to tell you it's going to be easy. You're going to have to work really hard, like 30 hours a week for about 6 months, but you can do it. And if you combine those two together and you've got that emotional intelligence, that executive presence, and you can back it up with quality, you find a good recruiter like these guys, you'll be in great shape. You will. So there's that. Now I'm looking at the emoji in the background. I can't tell if they're Rastafarian colors or there's some other colors, but in any case, we'd absolutely love to help you. So thrilled to really have you. Happen to love the Rastafarian community. I've got so many Jamaican friends and Ethiopian friends, so I typically see that. But whatever the case is, Ewell, I hope I answered your question. Do you guys have any advice for Ewell?
I think you hit the nail on the head. That's it. And I actually just learned a lot from what you just said. It's the breakdown and comparison of the design, the ops, and how it relates. It makes sense. And the abuse. Wow, you talk about having white glove service. That's unbelievable. Yeah. I didn't think about it.
And it's really funny. When I took my first job at WorldCom, there were two people on the design team. There were two contractors, and I know you placed them both, but that's neither here nor there. And I remember one of them says to me, "Mike, why aren't you stressed?" And I said, "Nobody shot at me yet today, which is a good day for me. Nobody's tried to kill me, which is different than shooting me, because there's lots of people that when you're a paramedic that try and stab you or hit you with baseball bats and other things." I said, "So that's already relaxed." I said, "Nobody's going to die." I said, "We're just dealing with tech. So take in the whole situation, evaluate what's going on, take a deep breath, stay calm where the prefrontal cortex is engaged. Don't get stressed where the amygdala kicks in and we get dumb, and get the job done." And you know what? That's worked. So I know we have more questions. So let's go to the next question. Chris, if you can bring up the next one. Sinissa, are there opportunities for Canadians to work in the States, and how hard is it to get there? Well, I'm going to let you guys do it first, because you guys deal with a lot more immigration and things than I do. And, I've got some experience with this, but nowhere near as much as you guys.
So, Eric, I want you to expand on the consulting side of things, or the corp to corps. But yes, there are opportunities for Canadians to work in the United States. My experience with hiring Canadian employees is, the visa. I think it's a TN visa, the T1 visa. You would just need every year to, if you're in the US and you have a Canadian visa, you would just drive up once a year to the border and then do some paperwork. It takes very little time, and then that's really about it. It's different from the H1. If you are if you live in Canada and want to do a remote role for a company in the US, that's something that we see all the time, and we've done a lot of, as the opportunity rises for remote work. We're getting more and more companies that are that are taking employees from Canada, and even and as well as Mexico as well. We've got people that are in remote roles and want to spend 6 months in Mexico and 6 months in the US, or vice versa, 6 months in Canada, 6 months in the US. So there is a lot of opportunity, more opportunity now for people outside of the US to work. On the consulting end of things, we just recently had doing a lot of contractors and placing consultants in Canada. We just had this experience with one of our consultants, but Eric can expand on that.
Yeah. So basically the way that we were able to structure it was we had the consultant who was in Canada. He had his own corporation. It was an LLC, actually. And what we did is we were able to go into a corp-to-corp relationship with this person. And basically, it was the only struggle that we had was just making sure that we had the terms right. Were we paying them in American dollars or in Canadian dollars? Once we sorted that out. And then there's something that's called the Harmonized Sales Tax, HST, which is something that a Canadian employee would pay to the government, because the initial payment that we have with the consultant, there's no taxes taken out, but that needs to be taken out at the end of the year on the Canadian side. So as long as you're cognizant of those things, it's a relatively simple process. And it's starting to happen more and more. And I can tell you that we certainly got a crash course education in it. And it's been working out wonderfully for us. So the opportunities are certainly there. As far as being a full-time employee, if you're a Canadian citizen working in the United States, you make a trip up to the Canadian border once a year, show your face, renew your visa, you're good for another year. So it's a very simple process. There are steps involved, but it's a relatively simple process.
Right. And I don't think you have to pay that tax if the company is a Canadian if there are offices in the US, but I believe there's also a Canadian office.
The Canadian to Canadian.
Right.
There's no HST.
Right.
The HST only exists on a US to Canadian transaction.
Right.
So awesome, wonderful. And those of us in the US, for example, we'll go to the next question. About 9 months ago, somebody wanted me to support a client in Japan from the US. We just want you to work Japanese hours. So I called my friend Raj in Bangalore and said, "Hey, do you want this instead? Because I'm not Mr. Night, and I'm not good at night." And he's like, "Maybe you want to split it." And I was like, "Oh, that could be kind of fun. We could both work 4 hours a day. I could work 11 to 3, and you could do the rest of it." But I chose not to do that. So great perspective. I love that, Chris. If you can bring on the next question, I want to make sure we answer everyone. Ran Tao, great question. So Ran's a fantastic cloud architect. He's one of my students. How to get around internal HR screening or robotic screening? Well, I think we talked a lot about that, but let's go back to there because we may have addressed it in our discussions. Personally, have a very focused resume. This is my perspective. Know exactly what it is. Try and use an internal person or try to use a recruiter whenever possible. And if you're going to apply for jobs, try and use your network to try and promote you. Typically speaking, like at a Cisco, there's an exceptional people list. If I put someone on the exceptional people list and they get hired, they pay me, which is not why I do it. I don't need to be paid to get somebody a job. That's not my world, like as a referral. But what I do like about it is this following. I put someone on the list and I put a lot of people on that list, and boy, they're being called every 5 minutes because they're coming from an internal referral. So I do everything I can to try and skip and bypass HR. I respect HR people. HR people are really good at finding people that fit into an organization's culture. Just remember, they're not tech people. And if an HR person was to interview me about medicine and they're not a medical professional, can they gauge my skills? The answer is no. Now, if the HR professional is a nurse practitioner or a physician and they want to ask me competency questions, they can. But unless you're dealing with an HR exec that's a CCIE and a certified solution architect professional, chances are they're not going to know the cloud and they have no idea what to ask you. So, you guys, any other advice for Ran?
You covered it.
You covered it. Yeah, that's exactly it. You really covered it. Sometimes you can't get around it, but if you can, like you said,
you can't get around it. Another thing is if you're not able to work with a recruiter and you're trying to get around it, I mean, I don't know. Can you find maybe who is if it's a smaller organization, who is that HR head? Who is that person that maybe you can directly engage with instead of into a mass pile of what? So, maybe they may not reply, they may not respond, but that may be,
I also. Go ahead, Chris. Well,
I also try to have some empathy too. If that's the be all and end all, try to empathize of who you're dealing with.
That's it.
Resources. Explain if you are on the phone with this person and it's kind of robotic, right? Try to get them out of that roboticness. Like, take a step back and say, hey, let me explain to you what I'm really good at and what I'm looking for. Explain to them who you are and how you think you can fit in the organization, and try to have some empathy that half the stuff that you're saying just sounds like another language to them. Like they are just, they might be nodding their head and being like, oh, great. But no, really try to explain to them how they should go back to the hiring manager and pitch you. give them those tools to say, listen, go to the manager and say, I spoke to this person. I spoke, and this is what you should say. And I think keeping that in mind, can really kind of get you ahead of the game. And
that
you want to build on that.
Well, that's exactly what I was going to say. It's about having that, again, going back to what Mike is just kind of preaching. You got to have that emotional intelligence to know who it is that you're talking to. You have to understand that the person you're talking to is not technical. They're an HR person. They're the first line of defense. You can't get frustrated at the fact that they don't know what they're talking about. You got to be able to break it down to them in layman's terms, what you do, and make sure that you're able, again, just like Chris said, that you're able to emphasize and get across what you bring to the table. Let that HR person go to the hiring manager and say, hey, listen, you know what? I just spoke with Steve for 30 minutes. I have no idea what the guy said, but I love him, and I think that you could have a great conversation with him.
Ren, you need to sell yourself, Ren.
Guys, what's the likelihood that HR is going to actually take that call, engage in that type of conversation, and do those sorts of things? Not to knock on HR,
But okay, so then send an email if that's the only way you can go. Send a LinkedIn message and say, hey, there's an opportunity at your firm. I know you receive thousands of applicants. I want to stand out.
maybe you can find the hiring manager on LinkedIn, these candidates to go, if we can't help to say, who's the guy that runs this, opposed to the HR. Maybe you send them a direct message. Hey, I sent this over, but I wanted to put this up on the top. This is my passion, blah, blah, type of thing. But not many people know those types of things. So maybe people listening and hearing where the recruiters can't help, at least you can help yourself in some way when you're kind of lost.
That's right.
Maybe I can go above and beyond HR, but these people, recruiters, no one has this job. I see this. Maybe I can think beyond that. HR, maybe I can find out, especially LinkedIn. There's so much information there. With a little digging around, act like a recruiter a little bit for a minute. What would I do? What would, put yourself in our shoes. I'm not trying to tell you to do our job, but if we can't help you, you got to help yourself.
Yeah, that point, think from the other person's perspective, Steve. Yeah. That's it. When we deal with our students, we spend so much time on teaching them what the hiring manager wants. And I'm like, look, if you want to get hired, you got to be what they want. So here's what they want. Because if you're not what they want, they're going to hire somebody else. It's a competition. For somebody to get hired, the sad reality is someone else isn't going to get hired. I wish that wasn't the case, but if there's one job and there's 5 applicants, 4
there's an opening for a job. There's a need for some sort of skill and something to do something. So if you're not that person that does that job, you're not going to really be considered, even though some people can't understand, well, I'm qualified. Well, you're really not. And that's where people sometimes need to recognize that they're going for something that's just way out of bounds. Not to say you can't reach for the stars, but you've got to understand, there's a want and need for a certain skill at this employer. That's what they want. That's what they're going to hire.
It's name that tune. You have to name that tune. When you're speaking to a hiring manager, you need to figure out within a minute, name that tune, who you're speaking to. HR, same thing, name that tune. Figure out if they truly understand the role or how you can help them.
I had a guy thanking me yesterday. I had on an interview with a client, and they just had a cordial conversation about what makes their clock tick, what makes the employer, what types of opportunities, because he's got a multitude of opportunities. So the way that he's going about the interview process is much different than some of our other clients where some sort of aptitude test and things. And I have to sell and explain to the candidates, well, we're kind of going about this a little bit differently. Why do they want to kind of get a gauge on these certain skills in a test when I want to talk more about the technical, have a normal interview conversation. So they had just an open dialogue. He couldn't thank me enough for just, getting him exposed to this client. And it's going on to the next stage. They're doing more technical interview, et cetera, et cetera. But again, and I thanked him for entrusting in me because I didn't really have much to tell him other than, hey, I've got this many years of experience. This is what we do. And trust in me, and he did. And that's where the relationship's going to just start from there. Not the most senior experience, type of, engineer or anything, but just a really good, and he's going to get the job more on his personality skills besides anything.
Right.
And I knew that when I sent them, and I tell my team when I've got a great candidate, I'm like, we have our job meetings, a couple times a day. I've got this, I've got that, and Kristina knows me. I'm always selling if I have someone that I really like, and she knows that she almost doesn't have to screen them. Let's get this over to Jim over at XYZ company.
It's that servant leadership attitude. I think when you're speaking to people at all times, it's coming across of how I can help.
Excellent. So we're going to take the next question, but everyone out there, please comment with the type of job you want. You got 3 top-end recruiters here. We got lots of people watching. There's an audience all across the world that's going to see things. So comment with the job you desire in the chat box. You never know what's going to happen.
I'd like to add one thing, Mike. I'm sorry. So I'm seeing that we're starting to get some emails in the info at IT Accel, but send that email. We're going to have somebody respond to you after this session is done. So, please.
Yeah, and don't be shy. And please, everybody on here too, do not be shy. Feel free to reach out to me. There's something. Look, I was born in the 70s, so there's the intimate side of having a phone conversation or face to face. I'm all about that. I grew up in the industry where it's 2 phones and a fax machine. So feel free to reach out to me directly. I'd love to have a conversation with anyone, or if you to ask me any question, but feel free to reach out to me in any which way. If you find my phone number or my cell, text me, reach out to me. I love having these conversations and helping in any way. I just wanted to throw that out there.
Excellent. And thank you. That's so important. And I'm really grateful for that. I know the service you guys offer.
Yep.
Madasser training, how does it look down the line 5 years in terms of service providers making it further big, like AWS, Azure, Google? Well, I'll give you my perspective.
Mm-hmm.
I actually think Azure is going to be number 1.
Mm-hmm.
I think Azure is going to be number 1 for the following reasons. Azure is the most business friendly of all of the cloud providers, regardless of your background, regardless of what industry you're in. If you're in munitions or if you're in, streaming media, Azure wants your business. Now, some of the other cloud providers don't want to do things for military uses, or they're uncomfortable if somebody has something that could be used for national security. And the employees in these organizations have said, I'll quit if you do these kind of things. And Microsoft is kind of this business-friendly thing that says, hey, everybody, we just want to work with you. We don't care if you feel this way. We don't care if you feel this way. We don't care if you feel this way. So 327 million people in the US, or 350 or something like that. I want all 100%, not 50%. So, there's that. So I actually think Microsoft is late to the market with Linux, but I think they're on the market now with Linux. And I think Microsoft is deeply, deeply, deeply rooted with the executive team with every organization in the world. Microsoft, Cisco, General Electric, these big like IBM, these big organizations have the business acumen that you can't believe. Their employees are the most trained in emotional intelligence, executive presence, and communication skills. So in the end, it's going to be a battle between AWS and Microsoft for the top spot. I think they'll trade blows. I think Google will grow because it's an incredible cloud. Now look at Google. They make the number 1 search engine in the world, which is Google, the number 2 search engine in the world, which is basically YouTube. Now look at all the machine learning algorithms that they've done to basically be able to take the entire internet and search it, categorize it, and get you the right thing. So I see it being more like this. AWS is great in infrastructure. Google may have the best machine learning options in the world because that's their whole business prior to doing the cloud. Microsoft is in deep with organizations and in deep with Active Directory and Exchange and all those other things. So they're there. And now that Microsoft's a big player in terms of Linux and infrastructure, they're there. Plus, there's one more thing that I love about Microsoft. When you deal with the rest of the cloud providers, I call it marketing central. I'm an executive. I call water. I call this a shaker bottle. I don't call it something first. I don't use terms like elastic, IaaS, PaaS. And all these cloud providers do it. Microsoft calls a virtual machine, meaning you actually know what it is. So the more terms that I think vendors do that aren't designed to do branding, but communicate at the executive level, hey, this is my object storage. This is my block storage. this is a container. When you strip it all out and people know what they're buying, I think companies are more comfortable buying. So my background is in AWS and Google. My background is in Cisco stuff. But I think Azure is going to be a big player. So without the training, that's my guidance. I don't know what you guys are seeing in terms of job roles. What are you guys seeing for the most?
I would agree on that. We're seeing a lot of Azure positions.
A lot of Azure.
A lot, and
More focused.
AWS second, and GCP. It's we get clients that want GCP people. There's like 5 in the world, and when you reach them, they want like 300 an hour and 400, and they're getting it. Like it's so difficult. We can't find any.
And that's why the GCP one was the first one that I did. Well, I did it for 2 reasons. One is I wanted to check our AWS training, and because we wrote a book on passing the Certified Solutions Architect Professional, and I said to my team, I said, if we write a book on passing the AWS exam and we're good, we should pass the Google exam with no preparation.
Right.
And of course they said, Mike, you're crazy. So I bought the Cybex book. It showed up on a Friday. It didn't open until Saturday. I read it from 9 to 5 on Saturday, 9 to 5 on Sunday. Passed the test. The test was so easy that it shut off, within 45 minutes, and I was done with it. But the point is yes, I'd say number 1, AWS or Azure for certification purposes. But you know what? Long-term GCP. But if it's your first tech job, GCP would not be my thing, because there's not enough employers to basically hire you for the one in the 3 to 5% of the cloud or whatever they have. At least that's
primarily Microsoft world, like you say, from a business perspective, everybody's home working. I mean, most people, they're using Microsoft products. So.
And I tried to avoid it. I tried to run a Mac. I had a $12,000 Mac I was sitting behind, and literally it would crash every day trying to run industrial applications. So, businesses run on Microsoft because they support the applications that are necessary to make business work. Servers, Linux, sure, but now Microsoft plays Linux with Windows Subsystem for Linux, and they've got Linux instances. So I'm thinking Azure is going to do really great.
I agree.
Okay, Laman. Okay, Laman's a really great guy and a super smart architect. Hi, Mike and all. When you were working on soft skills, communication skills, empathy, etc., when do you really know you're ready? Laman, I'll give you my perspective. Christina's got a behavioral perspective as well, which I love. To me, when you start working on your soft skills, here's what you're going to notice. Better relationships with your family and friends. All of a sudden, you're going to have more people reaching out to you because they feel good in your presence. Next thing you notice, things and opportunities just magically arrive. Once I started training these skills, it was all of a sudden, I was like, Mike, can I talk to you? Can I get your advice? Can I get your guidance? So I think when you're ready, when the following thing has, you can actually see actionable changes in your everyday life. That would be my perspective, but I'd love to get the panel's perspective.
Who wants to jump in?
So
I'm always ready to yap.
Mike, you kind of nailed it. It's when people start to seek you out. That's when you know that you've arrived. Hey, Laman, just something as simple as, what do you think about this? If someone says, what do you think? You're there. What do you think about, anything work related, personal related, anything? All of a sudden now people are starting to gravitate towards you because now your opinion means something. And just interacting with people, being cognizant, not being self-centered, opening yourself up.
Yeah.
And others and other people. Not everybody has the same views and thoughts. So those are other things you have to you got to reverse it. You've got to look at, and when you're ready, that you feel comfortable in your own skin too.
Yeah. And Eric, what you just said, it's having that, it's a crucial component of leadership and ability to manage your emotions, as well as recognize and to influence others as well. Like you said, someone will say, hey, what do you think? So it's you both hit the nail right on the head. I keep saying that.
And I love what Jesse said. Love the vibes here, guys. Totally East Coast. So Jesse is one of my students. He's about 25 years old. He's the ultimate prodigy. I've got Kenny, who's also a young prodigy as well. I am really lucky. It's like the world's greatest students from all over the world somehow found themselves to me. But Jesse is one of these people. I'm sick with a fever, and I have been all week. But last night, I'm like, Jesse, I want you to do this, this, and this, because this is what I see in your future. So Jesse, always appreciate every kind of thing. You remind me Oh, wow. You remind me in so many ways, but you're not coming from the medical perspective. Peter, what does it mean when job descriptions like list GCP, AWS, and Azure? Are they looking for people that have worked on all three platforms? So I have a take on it. And my take is a little different, Peter. I say learn the cloud. The cloud provider is irrelevant. And here's what I mean. If you understand servers and virtual machines and containers, firewalls, load balancers, storage, and every other component that goes part of it, you understand the cloud. So when I deal with a client, Peter, and they say I need 1,000 virtual machines, I know I need a virtual machine. Now for me, if I get an EC2 instance from AWS, an Azure virtual machine, or something from Compute Engine, Google Compute Engine, who cares? You know, when an architect designs a building, they say the building needs to be this tall, which means it needs to withstand this kind of wind. I need steel of this strength, glass of this strength. It doesn't matter where you buy it. It's just a store. So typically speaking, when they see this, they want to know that you've got experience in all three. But you know what? There's two ways you can become great at something, Peter. I speak multiple languages. I don't think in English and then translate to Greek or another language. I think in the language that I'm actually using. So the people that I found that have an impossible time becoming cloud architects, working with multiple clouds, are the people that say, okay, this is an EC2 instance. What's that thing called in Azure that's the equivalent of an EC2 instance? No, break it down to the fundamental level. I need a virtual machine. Map it out architecturally. Then go to the store and buy whatever virtual machine. I need a container. Go do it. So does it hurt to have more than one vendor certification? Look, it's great. If you're an expert on the cloud and then you want to do multiple vendor certifications, great. But you have to be hired first. And since you have to be hired first, I'd say be great at something, be the best you can be so good, skill-wise, the employer takes notice. Then make sure your business acumen, so you can do ROI modeling, you can understand the business's requirements, your emotional intelligence, your soft skills, your communication skills, your presentation skills, your executive writing skills, which is the exact opposite of what we're taught in MBA programs. That's when that comes into play. So that would be my guidance. But do you guys have any other thoughts for Peter?
Not that I loved what you described as far as thinking in the language that you're currently using, and me as a linguist, I was trained in Russian, and when I would hear things in Russian, I would hear it in Russian, and I would respond in Russian, and there was no translation period that was going on, and that helped tremendously. So that's like the greatest analogy that I can think of.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't really see a lot of job descriptions, by the way, with all three.
Me either.
Most of the job descriptions that I see are dedicated to one of what they're using.
Yeah, you kind of wonder who would put all three.
Yeah.
Probably someone who doesn't know what they're looking for.
Right. Or just, again, that wish list. And, and then at that point, you can figure out once you get an interview, then what exactly they need. So that's not common from what I've seen. But good question.
Excellent. Chris, if you want to bring up the next question. Ayadani, you have a master's in healthcare. I love that. We both do. Mine is more of an MBA, but I practiced medicine for a while, so I gotcha. You have a CCP, but no experience. What are the first steps for me to take? Well, I'd like to know which career you would like first. And if you tell me which career, I will give you the steps, because the training for a cloud engineer is extremely different than a cloud architect, which is different than a SysOps person, which is a DevOps person. So if you tell me the career that you actually want, I would absolutely love to answer you them. In fact, you can. There's lots that you can join us for how to get your first cloud architect job webinar. And if you mention to us, then we'll give you a plan. But without knowing the plan, I don't want to give you wrong guidance, because the plan is so different for each of these careers.
Yeah.
But I'd love to answer it. So feel free to just give us the second half and we'll come back to you. Chris, do you want to bring up the next question? Babita, what is your advice for you coming from the oil and gas industry? We work with a lot of people from that background. You were a certified solution architect with AWS and Azure. You successfully completed 9-month PG class computing from Caltech. So, Babita, The industry is heavily moving to the cloud, but when you apply as a cloud architect, you get either a rejection or a silly excuse of not having experience. So Babita, there's a couple things that possibly going on. I routinely, and I wish it wasn't the case, but I'd say 20% of my students actually come from these 9-month, $60,000 cloud computing training programs, because in these 9-month, $60,000 training programs, they're teaching Python scripting, they're teaching associate level things in many classes. So they're really focusing on the superficial. A little of this, a little of this, a little of this. Unfortunately, none of these programs focus on architect skills, which is emotional intelligence, executive presence, sales, how to write like an executive. They're basically focusing on the technician part of it. Mm-hmm. So if you wanted to move into an architecture role, for example, we've got a program for you like ours. If you're not with us, make sure you learn end-to-end system design, which means the network and the data center. Oh, wait, I think you just joined our program and are recently a student. So what's going to happen is we're going to teach you the network, we're going to teach you the data center, then we're going to teach you system design. Then we're going to teach you the communication skills, how to present it, and everything. So in your case, 16 weeks from now, you will have really, really good skills. And I think all the questions you have are not relevant, won't be relevant anymore, because you're going to have the right resume, you're going to have the right skills, and I'm going to be calling someone on your behalf when I know you are ready. Now, I don't call recruiters until I know someone's ready. And one of my students, he's a really bright young man, and he keeps saying, "Am I ready yet? Am I ready yet?" I'm like, "No." And he's like, "Why?" And I'm like, "There's something that's missing. When you participate in class, when you do system designs, when I know you're ready, I will be the first one to call someone on your behalf." But I value the recruiters. The recruiters are, in my perspective, 30% of what it takes to get your first and best next job, because we can bypass HR. So for recruiters to take my phone call, for me to be able to call Steve and say, "Steve, I got one for you. I got one that's capable, ready, that will impress your clients," then I can do it. But I can't do that otherwise, because I can't damage their business. It's not right and it's not fair. So, we work as a team. So you won't have this problem. And in 3 months, you're going to be well taken care of. So in your case, I know you're solved, because we'll take care of you. Chris, would you like to bring up the next one? Chintan. Wow, what a great guy. Chintan's also one of my students. From my experience in recruiting for more than 20 years, is one quarter of the year better than others for recruiting or placement percentages? Just curious.
Is the question asking, like what time of year, is January through March the best time to get hired? April?
It seems like the case.
Each season has got its highs. If I were to say the first, second, third, or fourth quarter, second.
I would think second. Beginning of the year, then you get the tail end. I see more success in. You can ask Christina, but
yeah. So I think it's certain months. So August is always slow. Everyone's like the last hurrah summers. Certain companies, you want to get your certain weeks vacation in the last few weeks, before Labor Day, because after Labor Day, that's it. Kids go back to school, and everyone's hyper focused for the third and fourth quarter. Third quarter's good. I would say fourth quarter, there's a slowdown towards the holidays,
like Thanksgiving to Christmas.
Oh, right. It's exactly. Although there are certain years where we don't feel it. Like right now, like our August was amazing. So even December, some companies just want to make hires before, but then there's other companies that are paying out bonuses and people don't want to leave until after the year. So I would say like August and December would probably be the slowest months. I wouldn't say it's a quarterly thing. I would just say it's like, right?
Yeah. It's a hard question to answer because
and December.
It's not quarters. It's months. It's very cyclical. It really is very cyclical.
Yeah. So I'd say August and December are the two slow months.
Sounds great. Thank you, Chintan, for your question. Thank you for your response. It's interesting. They're around the same times we see more signups versus less signups too. It's all following the same pattern. So let's go to the next question, Chris. Silver Spoon Photography. Are there any panelists familiar with the arts institution space, i.e. the Met, the Louvre, etc. The need for cloud architects, since it's publicly funded, whether they pay market rates or not. Do you guys deal with Broadway or any of those kind of things, or arts environments?
I mean, Christina can maybe elaborate with the
yeah.
clients in particular working a lot in the creative non-for-profit space, museums, botanical garden,
Yeah, so a lot there are certain MSPs that we deal with that are just dedicated to certain sectors. Like you have, and it's just kind of organically grown. It's not like they wouldn't do business in other sectors, but that's just how, that's just how it went for them over time. So we do deal with companies that, deal with the art institutions that have maybe outsourced to a certain particular provider. And that comes to us to place people within that organization. So yes, we do directly and indirectly have relationships depending on the company. But as far as the need for cloud architects, yes, companies are just moving in that direction. So whether it's directly working for that institution as a cloud architect, or an Azure engineer, or working for the MSP that could actually put you on site at multiple different art institutions depending on their clientele.
And to answer the final part of that question, they do pay market rates. Don't be misled by the fact, like, if you're interviewing or pursuing a role at a not-for-profit, don't think that because they're a not-for-profit that they can't afford to pay. They pay. And I think most organizations now are realizing that if they want to be able to compete and succeed, that they need to pay market rates. Of course, there are certain companies within industries, but this is going to be anywhere, that might try and pay a little bit less on the base, but perhaps they offer more in benefits, or they offer more, in different perks and everything. They try and counter that in their own ways. But for the most part, you're going to find those types of organizations, they are going to be paying market rates. If you look at things like the Met and the Louvre and everything, they all have online stores and merchant shops and everything. That's all cloud-based. It's all software-based. Those jobs are definitely there, and there is definitely a need for it. That's a big arm of their income, and they're not going to skimp on it.
Excellent point, and thank you so much for that. Chris, you want to bring up the next question? Dee, can we get a LinkedIn account for all of the professionals in this QA session? Mine is open and available. If you guys are open and willing, that's great.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So Chris, if you want to paste a link to the LinkedIn account for everybody that's on here, it'd be great. So next question, please, Chris. Chris, if you can bring up the next question. And I do want to say we will get to the cloud architect versus cloud engineer question today. That is extremely important, and we're going to give you very good and very specific guidance so you can get to the role of your dreams. But Chris, if you want to bring up the next question.
He might be trying to round up our LinkedIn profiles.
Sorry, I got to the point where you said, "Tell me what you want to be." So I'm scrolling through all the cloud architect, cloud engineer, network architect.
Oh, sorry about that. So for people that don't know, Chris is my chief operating officer. Chris is an operations expert. Guys like me that are visionary, that are strategists, if we don't have an operations person behind us making sure we show up on time, follow up, and make sure that we make all our deliverables, it's a problem. So thanks, Chris.
Yeah, I found the next question finally. All right.
Thank you so much. Derek Houston. Wow. I know my feelings on this. Derek is an amazing cloud architect. He's one of the first people that asked me, is it a disadvantage to be on the older side? And I know I have very strong feelings on this. My feelings are when you're going to sell $1 billion product, it's not helping you when you're 21. But, I also love the vibrance and speed that people learn at youth. Plus, they typically don't have bad habits. So I'm not going to answer this because I've already answered it for Derek. I'm going to have you guys answer it.
Sure. So I mean, I don't think it's, I really don't think it's an issue. It just depends on the company. It depends on the role. It's, I don't think there's one specific, answer to that. I think it really just depends on the company, the role, and the, and the hiring manager. I mean, don't get me wrong. We've all been in a situation where, when there's an open role with an organization, they're like, I want somebody young and hungry. I want to mold somebody. I feel though, as a solutions architect, you really want somebody that's come in and built houses before. Like if you're hiring an architect to build a home, I kind of want that experience of someone that has, seen failures, seen disasters, knows what to do, has that experience. So I think at an architect level, it could be a big advantage to have all of this experience. Maybe it could have a disadvantage, again, depending on the organization. But I think
the blueprint in the background for it, and the experience that you've been working out throughout all these years, if you just all of a sudden say, I want to be a cloud architect, and you've done something completely different and you're over a certain maybe age, I mean, not discriminating, but sure, that's going to be more difficult. But if you have relevant experience, I mean, yeah, maybe some employers might be a little bit, not to have to, can't say it, but in a certain way, you kind of can understand where they're coming from. But
yeah,
I think the age is, ultimately a number. You have that experience, that's going to get you the job.
Yep.
And I generally personally, and I'll go to Eric too. I personally like someone for these bigger roles, someone that's had some life experience, someone that's afraid to just go, hey, this is the newest tech, let me go there. And I don't care if they were an accountant. I don't care if they were in customer service. I don't really care where they were. I just know that at 21, hey, let's try this. This is fun. Oh, this looks like a good idea. And at 30, it was like, you know what? We're going to build this network with a core, with a distribution and an access layer, not just because Cisco says it, because when you don't do this, because the non-networking person built the network, it all fell apart. So let's follow the guidance of the experts and let's use some of the wisdom that came with age.
I'm gonna share just a really, really quick story. When I was relatively young, I was working with one of the senior managers, and a problem arose, and I was stumped, and I was sitting down with him and we were talking about it, and he was able to sit down and frame it in such a way. He picked up the phone, made a quick phone call, and everything was resolved in a matter of about 6 minutes. And I remember sitting there like looking at him like, how did you pull that off? And granted, he didn't use such nice terms, but he goes, I'm not really that smart, Eric. I've just been screwed a lot. And that summed it up. That experience, knowing how to deal with problems, knowing how to overcome them, knowing how to recognize what's a problem even before someone else sees that it's a problem. That's something that experience can't, that only experience teaches that. And there are definitely a lot of organizations that recognize and acknowledge that. For those companies that don't, they're missing out. They really are. They're missing out on a lot of knowledge. It's one of those things, just like Steve said, you can't, right, wrong, or indifferent. There are companies that culture is going to allow them to hire somebody older or not. They're missing out on a lot. And, maybe I'm, because I am that 50 plus person. So
You are?
Yeah, you're biased.
I'm biased.
I love working with both sets of age groups. What I say is when you're young and you learn fast and you have the most energy and enthusiasm, play that as your strength. Make sure you've got the skills, but show the employer how energetic, enthusiastic, and passionate about, because that's what people want. We say no bad habits. Like Jesse, the prodigy that I'm talking about, all I have to say is, Jesse, I want you to learn these 2 things by tomorrow. He'll stay up all night and do it because he's got that energy and enthusiasm. So I want that. And at the same time, someone like Derek, I got $1 billion project. I want you to go lead this team because I feel confident that I know that what he's done throughout his career makes him a good leader. He's super smart, emotionally intelligent, communicates well. And I'm like, okay, I know that if I'm not there, you can know what to do. And I might say, look, I've got more experience than Eric does, or Derek does, but that's okay. I know he's going to know when to ask. He's going to know what he knows, know what he doesn't know, and how to find the answers quickly. That's where I like to marry the age and the youth. So I say we're great at any age, just play to your strengths.
I agree.
Evo is one of my students. She's from I think Bulgaria, but I think she's living in Hungary right now. She speaks a half a dozen languages, and she's pretty amazing. Such an enriching conversation, experience, thoughts, and perspectives in great detail. So valuable. Thank you so much, Eva, and I hope to see you in class, today. Mrs. Laminjamin. What a cool name that you posted there. What's a simplified differentiation between a cloud architect and a cloud engineer? You thought you had to become a cloud engineer for a while before becoming an architect. That is not true. What advice would you be? So I want to make this very clear. A cloud architect is someone that designs things. So we meet with the client, we ask 1,000,001 questions, we baseline the organization systems, we evaluate their current systems, and then we design something, and then we turn it to a team to build it for us. For us as a cloud architect, the knowledge is required is this end-to-end system design, the network, the data center, and how all the systems work together. That is what we do as architects. We design it, we present it, and sell it. Now, when we're done designing it, it has to be built. And the cloud engineer is the person that builds it. So while we talked about the cloud architect needing to know how all the pieces and parts fit together, how to ask the right questions, how to design it, how to sell it, how to present it, how to do an ROI model, the engineer needs to be a builder. So the cloud engineer needs to be someone that's on the management console all day, on the CLI all day, someone that's not leaving their desk. The cloud engineer needs to know some scripting skills, like some Python skills and some Node.js skill, and be pretty familiar with YAML templates for both containers and other things, cloud formation templates. The cloud engineer should know things like infrastructure as code, like Terraform. The cloud engineer is an expert builder. So the key is these are exactly opposite. If you actually look at certification training, here's the name of a service and here's how to configure it. That is engineering work. Engineering is more like nursing and less like medicine, although I still say nurses actually do more of the architect job. But in a traditional environment, which is not reality, if I were to write a prescription and a nurse were to carry out the orders, or if a pilot's flying the plane and the flight attendant were to carry out the orders, look at the engineer as the person that's doing the job. Look at the architect as the person that's designing it. So architect of a building, we design the building and then we hire a construction crew. The cloud engineer is the equivalent of the construction crew. So a cloud engineer needs construction skills, how to build it all. The cloud architects need design skills. So the cloud engineer needs to know all about object storage, specifically like the object storage platform with AWS. They're a master of S3. We cloud architects are more of a master of how do all the storage components work together and how do we design the end-to-end solution. So I hope I answered your question there. Love your name, by the way. It's a great handle. Do you guys have any other advice or guidance?
The engineer is going to be the one who's going to tell the architect, hey, we can't build what you drew. We have to tweak it. And the architect's going to be like, but that's my design. Like, well, it can't be built. That's the difference.
Yeah, so true. And when I design a solution, I work as a team. Look, my background is infrastructure, so I'm a cloud infrastructure architect. But I got some generic cloud architects on my team, some cloud security architects, some cloud IAM architects, and no, they're not security, but they're related to security. We've got lots of cloud engineers, lots of maintenance people, or sysops people, lots of DevOps people. I say, hey guys, is this going to work? Well, this will work on AWS, but not on Google. So I go back to the engineers each time.
Yeah, I like to use the analogy, Mike. We discussed this as building a house. The architect builds the home and blueprints, draws everything out, understands the code, understands all the higher level stuff, and then it trickles down after that, down all the way to the plumber. You don't need to be a plumber to be to be an architect.
Exactly.
Right.
That's the perfect description.
Yep.
So Chris, if you want to, Precious is over there in Australia, really great guy. Hi, Christina, I'm enjoying your feedback. By the way, do you have access to other international recruiters in other countries like Australia that hire cloud solution architects?
I do. So Precious, hit me up on LinkedIn and we'll network and try to get you hooked up with people in your area.
Thank you so much, Christina.
Yep.
Precious, like I said, I was bringing in the best. Bring up the next question. Bonaventure, are there more jobs for cloud engineer or cloud architect? I will generally say, as a rule, there's more jobs for construction workers than there are building designers.
Right.
So the cloud architect pays a lot better, has a lot more career progression. But, you know, in my perspective, there's going to be less cloud architect jobs than less cloud engineer jobs. But I'm not placing people all day, but I do make sure my people get hired. So if you guys want to answer that.
I think you're right.
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing more engineering than architecture. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
You know, with one client in particular, you know, we might have put an architect or two, but now there's looking for the engineers. And it's not only Azure, which is, like you say, primarily the focus, but you know, the AWS side as well. So yeah, more engineering.
Yep.
And salary differences, percentage-wise, is one 50% higher, one 100% higher, typically speaking, with the people you're dealing with? You're also in the New York Metro dealing with financial people, so.
30% more maybe.
Yeah, maybe like 20. Yeah, maybe like 20%, 30%.
Early in the career?
Ranges. There's ranges. If you're more senior in the architecture, then it's, you know, but if you're more junior on the Azure engineering, so
okay,
ranges. I'd say 150K for engineers and 180K for
average architect.
We'll go to 200 plus bonus. You know, 200. I would say that 150 for engineers, 200K.
Bank's a different animal with the whole hedge fund or set up with the bonuses. I mean, some people are making, you know, 100% bonus, 50% bonus, you know, at the end of the year. It's like, okay.
If you're at a hedge fund, it's wild to get 100% bonus.
Yeah, I don't think it's, I think it's, you know, so what I tell people is average salary for an initial cloud architect is about, you know, 155. A good senior architect could easily earn 300, easily. Is that what your experience is based upon, you know, the higher paying jobs, the bigger banks, the people that are more social skills, emotional intelligence? Because these are the offers that people keep reaching out to me for every day. So, you know, I say that it's a great career. I still love cloud engineering. For people that love working on computers, it's awesome. For people that don't like to be in front of customers, it's awesome. I like architecture because I see more career progression, but guess what? We got to be happy. We have to do what we love. So I could design everything, and if there's nobody to build it, it doesn't matter. There's no design. So it is a team, and I respect the engineers. They've saved me more times than I can count over the last 20 some years. And you know what? As an architect, I'm the leader. I'm the front man, front person, whatever term you want to use. And I protect my engineers like you can't imagine. So they're part of my team. They're part of my family. So I think Govi BGP, we actually answered your question there as well. Mike M, when it comes to working with recruiters, what are the things to look for choosing one? I'm going to give you my perspective, and then I'm going to have the expert recruiters give you theirs. So I know a lot of recruiters. Here's the thing that I'm looking for. One, can I trust the person? Is this going to be a person that says, I've got 1 million jobs, send me your resume, and it's going to go to a database, and I'm not going to speak to them? Not interested. Two, I want to know whether the recruiters are connected to their customer. Do their customers trust them and respect them? I brought in this team because I know their customers. I work with their customers. I've been their customers. It's like Steve is sending me a network engineer. I'm already in a good mood because I know they've probably vetted them to the point that it's not a waste of my time. And I know that if they send me 3 people, I'm going to be able to hire one. I'm also going to say that a good candidate never needs to interview with more than 3 companies to get hired. If it takes more than 3 companies to get hired, there's something wrong. Something wrong with your depth of knowledge, something wrong with your interview skills, something wrong with emotional intelligence, communication skills, presence, or attitude. I don't know what it is. I don't think you should ever go more than 3 interview with 3 different companies to get hired. If not, there's a problem. If it's not, don't keep interviewing. Fix the problem and go back. So I think there's realistically that. So that's what I look for. I look for people that are smart, connected, and caring, honest, and ethical that I can trust. That's why it's been 20 years and I'm still talking to IT Accel.
You got to be honest with people. You've got to tell them straight. You can't promise somebody something that you can't provide. I mean, no, granted, we can't help everybody. We just don't want to collect your resume and have it sit there and collect us per se, but we're going to be straight with you. And also we're looking for people, I mean, that, you know, have that skill, have that stability, have those certifications, have that education, have those soft skills. You know, sure, working with recruiters were a good thing to look for, and before choosing one, well, also it's the reverse too. And what are we looking for in candidates? So, and I guess we can start to do that more and more, and just the model that we have. I'm not saying that we're being picky, but again, we'll be honest with you, whether we can help you, not what we can do to help you to go and get that job that you may not get without some of that advice, and not recognizing and realizing that maybe your resume is not reading this way, meeting you, face to face, that maybe presentation, certain things, maybe you need a haircut, maybe you need to, certain things that people don't, you don't want to say and embarrass anybody, but we're real people. And I think that's what separates us from maybe others. Not to say that recruiters aren't good people, but it's a much more congested industry than it was 15, 20 years ago, when we started. I was like, recruiter, technology. When I first started, I was like, what is this business that my friend is in? That's how I kind of came to with my sales and, I guess, personality and working in some other industry, knowing I wanted to help people in some way. And then I kind of found, I guess, my calling, so to speak.
Yeah.
So.
And to expand on that, Steve, it's when you speak to someone, it's a gut feeling. With everything that everybody just said, there's a gut feeling. Like you can tell when you speak to somebody, whether, like it's, like you just get the heebie-jeebies when you're speaking to someone that's just like not right, or someone that's not transparent or not ethical, or you can like pick up on that when they're just kind of hyper-focused on their one job and they're just pushing to try to, get an interview with the metrics, or they're not listening to you.
That's it.
That's it. Right.
You're looking for someone who's going to listen to you.
Listen to you. It's listening. And look, I'm guilty of it. Sometimes I have a client that needs somebody like immediately, and I might call a candidate and try to push them into that one interview. But I will back it up and say, listen, I want to speak to you about whether if you do want to go on this interview, fine, but what's your dreams? What's your aspirations? What's your goals? Forget about this one job. If it works out, great. That's awesome. At the end of the day, it's only a good deal when everybody's happy, the applicant, the client, and us. It's gotta all happen, this magic where everyone's happy.
We've seen people in the industry, we have candidates that might get job offers where we have people that may try to convince someone to take a job because they want to make the sale. That's not something that we need or we need to do. We want people to be happy. We want our employers, our employees, people to be happy. We want them to stay and want them to, grow.
Because it's a reflection on us.
Putting someone in a seat for a minimal amount of time and having to wonder or worry, that they're not going to be happy. This is your career. It's like getting married. It's one of the most important steps and stages in your life. I mean, this is your home away from home. So we want to put people in the right opportunities. And then
I love that.
Yeah, and it's a reflection on us. Every person that we place, even if we've placed 20 of the top best IT people in the organization, you're only as kind of good as your last send. And our reputation is on the line every time we send someone for an interview.
Yes.
And it's a small industry, and we've got to really be cognizant of that. And we really are. So we're just not a body shop. We're not trying to just obtain metrics and say, oh, I've reached my metric of setting up 10 interviews today. It's more than that. And you can hear that, Alonzo, when you're speaking to someone, speaking to a recruiter, it's that gut feeling. I
agree. Actually, Alonzo, I think, because I know Alonzo well, Alonzo is one of those students that just, Mike, what more can I do? I'm like, would you like to do this? Okay. What else can I do? And Alonzo is actually going to help me teach an AWS class on YouTube Live for free because he's such a great cloud architect. And he's doing it to help me and help the community. So he actually wants to know, because he, like me, wants to know, how do we make the recruiters look good? So that's the kind of question that my students ask. This is the kind of architect that I love. How do we represent the people well? So we make the recruiters look good, so they build their business while building our careers. So while we have a partnership and someone that can work with me for the next 2 decades. Alonzo, I love your question.
Yeah, and preparing yourself, making you represent the recruiter and themselves the way. It's kind of almost simple. You're preparing yourself for the interview. You're researching the company. You're not just like maybe I'm just going to hop into this and just see how it goes.
Yeah.
Got to kind of prepare yourself. Understand also with the recruiter that's representing you. Don't, how many times have someone asked me questions about my background? Not that many. Get to know the recruiters, not just, well, what do they have for me? What do they, ask me about myself a little bit. then maybe you can more better represent yourself and represent me and my organization and what we do and what we provide.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Lonzo, love the question. And again, love working with you too. I'm really blessed to have students like this. I can't begin to tell you the kind of like GZ was there, who's a student, Evo, who's a student, Mike M was a student. So we're getting a lot of my students asking me questions, which is what I want. I want them to hear from people other than me. So that's why I try and bring in the best people. So Chris, bring in the next question.
I'm here. Just give me a second.
Sure. Love that, Chris. Theo Q. How do you guys fill up gaps in your resume if you had a period where you did freelance work? Okay, I'm going to let you guys do this. I have my own perspective, but I think your guys' perspective is going to be better.
Eric, you want to jump in on this?
Oh, come on. I was going to try and defer this one to you, Chris. So, I think that by stating that you did freelance work and you actually want to list it the same way that you would list the things that you were doing at any previous full-time job, if you want to be honest, you really do. And by showing the things that you've been doing to keep you relevant is going to be the most important. Obviously, going back to if you're a technologist and then you're being a dog walker for 3 years, that's going to be a little tricky. But if you were doing technology in that 3 years, you want to focus on the things that you've been working on, the certifications that you've been working on. You want to have that freelance work relevant, and you want to list the particular things that you are actually doing. There's not a real science to it. It's probably questions are probably going to be asked about it, but as long as you're able to confidently answer and explain what you were doing, how you were staying relevant, what you were doing to increase your skills, that's only going to help you.
Right. And I wouldn't put I would name each particular project, but I wouldn't put the date. So that, let's just say you had 6 projects within a 2-year period that were freelance and contracting. I wouldn't put down, for example, September 2020 to November 2020, and then January 2021 to 3. I would not put those dates. I would just put down from, whether that 2 or 3 year span, I would put, that the freelance work, and I would put the dates, and then I would just name the projects under them and talk about the projects. So it looks like you were freelancing for 3 years. There was stability in your instability. And
I love that. And, I personally couldn't work for a couple of years because I was involved in a martial arts incident and couldn't walk for over 3 years. Couldn't use my hand for over 3 years. And, I just put it in, I left the gap there because it was reality and I had a good reason. But you know what? I have a lot of students from all over the world. I am really blessed. In addition to the great students I have from America, I have 150 plus students from Africa. I've got about 50 students from India. And the reason I bring this up is I get so many wonderful students from Nigeria and Cameroon and South Africa. They're super hardworking, motivated people, and they get jobs literally overnight. So do the Indian people, so do the Americans, the right skills, you get hired, and it's overnight. But, a lot of my Nigerians, for example, they're Cameroonians. They were a doctor there. And then they went to America and drove an Uber for a couple of years.
Yeah.
And then traded a new set of skills and are now my students. You know what it's like working with someone like this that's highly emotionally intelligent, highly educated. It's like, okay, I need you to put in 20 hours a week. Mike, 20 hours a week? What are you, crazy? I've got 60, 70 hours a week.
That's nothing.
I've had people that have had no tech background go to AWS in 3 weeks. I had a Nigerian fellow that did it. Now, we did 3 practice interviews. He went outside the course about some practice interviews. I think he studied 16 hours a day. I don't think he slept once because I was getting messages from him 3 o'clock in the morning. So my point is obviously when you've got someone like that, they're going to have gaps in the resume. They're going to go from IT or geologist or somebody that drilled from oil and gas. They may be driving a cab or an Uber for 2 years or working in a food company or working as a behavioral health tech that's the new hero that graduates a program and is now a senior architect. So where you're from, you're relevant. What your background is, you're relevant. The capabilities, it is so hard to find people to do this job.
Oh, right.
There are so many people out there and so many jobs that don't make any excuses. Go out there and win. So if you've got gaps, try and fill them in, make your resume look good. And even if if there's a time where you did nothing, put something, make a job, research and development, and in there build the things that you did to make yourself better.
Right.
You can call it something, call it a job, call it a phase. There's something. Call it career development timeframe. I don't care. Fill it in with something and show what you've done. My family did it when they came here from Greece. Americans do it all the time. My American students are with us to get hired, but the students that come from all over the world, they're going to have gaps on their resumes.
Yeah.
Someone that was a doctor in Ghana may not be a doctor in the US. And you know what? They may have learned more in Ghana how to treat medicine with less resources than we do. But it's like, okay, wait, we don't trust this. We didn't train the person. So now you got to come here and go to medical school again. It's crazy. I went to an acupuncturist that trained in Beijing. She was a real Chinese medical doctor. And she had this little thing on the wall. I'm like, what's this? She's like, when I came to America, I had to learn the American way of doing Chinese things. So we're still doing it the Chinese way. But here's my paper. Isn't it a joke? So fill in those gaps in your resume. Be great. What I'm saying is I'm seeing a very international population that's taking these jobs.
And you know what's interesting? I back many years ago, the feedback from a hiring manager, if somebody didn't have this stability, would be they're a jumper, don't want to see them.
Yep.
It's something you don't hear anymore.
No.
You can have gaps in your resume, you can jump around. Like it's just something that I have not heard someone say, I don't want to interview this candidate.
Technology.
I haven't heard that in years and years and years. It's, and because I came up, I came through that. When I see that on a resume, like I get a little anxious or nervous, but then I'll send the resume, and that's not the feedback. It's I think it's even it's even more like that today because of there's just such a lack of candidates in all areas of technology. It's
Such
really.
a lot.
Well, everything's always changing. There's so much opportunity, and people that enjoy with what they do want to challenge themselves. And it might be every 2-3 years that they're making moves, and employers would frown upon that years back.
Yeah.
It's not like I say, my parents, my mom and your dad driving to the same office for 40 years. Autopilot, close your eyes. I work at IBM. I've been working there for 40 years. I've got a shiny pen. I've got a plaque. And now I've got to watch.
That's total boomer mentality. Yeah. And that's the way it was. And that was okay. But you can't retire at companies anymore. It's like your gold watch after your 20 year, it doesn't work. It just doesn't work like that.
There's a normalcy now to the gig economy that wasn't always there.
Right.
And that's what it boils down to.
So it's okay that you freelanced. It's not, that's fine.
Freelance is good. I know. So the next question, Vitaly Brinza, do you as recruiters and your clients work with contractors from the EU?
Of course.
Yep.
Even remote opportunities with clients here in the US that are, hiring, and you can stay right where you are. I mean, there's absolutely.
So we're going to answer a few more questions. And as I promised, I'm going to have these guys talk about their best, highest profile jobs they're trying to fill in right now. I'm assuming they've got some. They've probably got some cloud architect ones, maybe some cloud engineer, maybe some DevOps, maybe some network engineer and architect jobs. I'm sure they've got everything.
We do. We have all of the above. We really, really do. We have network engineering roles that are looking for someone with automation experience, with Python scripting. We have pre-sales solutions architects, delivery manager, post-sales positions in Azure and AWS. We have Azure DevOps engineering positions. That's 100% remote. Where there is I love how some titles will say Azure engineer, but there's an operational piece to it, and they have to be on call every 6 weeks or so from an operational standpoint, even though the title's engineering. So, we do that. That's pretty interesting.
Comes with territory. It's part of the job. I mean,
right.
There are going to be certain parts of your job, everybody, that sometimes you might not love to do, but it's part of the job. So we recognize that, then
Yeah, it is. It is. I mean, it's like it's like being a network doctor. When you work in a NOC center in network operations, you're a network you're a doctor.
Exactly.
You're the doctor of the network, and you're on call. But look, let's face it. When you get into architecture and engineering, it's okay to not want to do that. It's fine.
Yep.
As long as you state that from the from the get go. So we also have a director of data analytics position. We've got
looking for broadcast engineers. As crazy as that off the.
I actually have a really good broadcast engineer.
Do you really? Oh, please. We have
I have someone that's learning cloud architecture from me that has been involved in radio broadcasting for like 2 decades. So, Chris, when we get to class today, remember that person for the radio broadcast engineer. I think I remember that person's name in my head, but it's
we can talk to them. The background is the systems. Absolutely. What else?
That's right, Mike. Chris is not going to be running the class today because he's getting out some new videos because we've got some really exciting courses coming up for new careers. I have a philosophy. We don't teach anything that we're not experts on. So I've got a really expert DevOps engineer making a DevOps course with us. I've got a friend that's got 2 CCIEs that spent, 2 decades at Cisco and Juniper that's helping to make a cloud architect program. So Chris is working on some of those. Cool. So Chris says there's another question. So let's find this question from Chris. Okay. Chin, wonderful student of mine. You understand that it is necessary to know, but the recruiter about the pay range for the job. So here's a great question. And I have a philosophy on this, but I'm going to ask you the question. How do you answer the what is your salary expectation?
Yeah, that's great.
Kenny Zhang is asking the same question. Well, how to negotiate a higher salary, Kenny, I'll say is a big conversation, not a little conversation. I just filmed for all my internal students a good negotiation course. It's all coming for you, completed free in the Cloud Architect Career Development Program. It's based upon the Chris Voss's work, as well as the work from the Harvard Negotiation Project. But let's go back to the how to answer the salary negotiation questions.
Yeah, that is a, like you said, that's a big question, and we could spend a lot of time on that. What is your salary expectation? I think you should give a range and also say it depends on opportunity, it depends on package, it depends on bonus, it depends on stock, options and all that good stuff. But you can give a range on the base. Go, Eric. I know.
Well,
go ahead.
What I want to say is not necessarily so what's the salary expectation? The not right answer is, well, I guess that it really depends on what the job entails. Like if I have to do this, and this, then I want this. And if I have to do this, and this, and this, and this, then I want to. That doesn't translate well to a hiring manager.
No.
That doesn't translate well. But basically, there's a range, and they're looking for people who are going to go in and be a team player. They're looking for people who are not going to go in and say, well, if I'm getting paid X number of dollars for doing this, this, and this, if you ask me to do this, then I'm going to say that's not my job. That's not the right answer. You kind of have to know going in what it is that you're looking for and what you need to be happy. I can tell you that a good recruiter is not going to let a company lowball you. A good recruiter is not going to allow a company to lowball you. So if you go in with the attitude that, well, I'm going to tell you what I want only based on what I know what the work is, you're already making it almost a confrontational sort of relationship. Knowing what you need, knowing what's fair,
what's fair is important.
Is the best way to go. Knowing what's fair.
And knowing what the ranges and what your expertise is. There's always a range and there's a cap. There's pretty much a cap on every, a lot of the that's out there, and depending on which area of IT you're in. So
I'm not sure if I delivered that right, but if maybe Steve, Chris, or even Mike, if you guys can kind of clean up what I just said.
Yeah, sure. And I love what you said. See, I typically say I'm currently earning this. I'd like to be in that range, but I know the range. But here's the key. You can never go to that employer and say, well, I want this for this amount of work. or I want this for this amount of work. Because what you're signaling the employer is you're not a team player and you're not willing to go above and beyond. So what do employers desire? I've polled thousands of employers and they all tell me the same thing. First, they want someone that's technically competent. Then they want someone they can trust. Then they want someone that knows their limitations, knows what they know, knows what they don't know. Then they say, I want energy and enthusiasm and passion for the job. Then they tell me the following. They say, I want someone that brings out the best in others. They tell me I want someone that's willing to go above and beyond, and someone's willing to be part of the team. So for me, the key is not how much do I want. It's what I can do for your organization. How much more efficient can I make your team? Can I train your engineers to go from being $100,000 engineers to $200,000 engineers, and you only need to give them a $30,000 pay raise because we trained them internally? Can I enhance the number of customer contacts by 86%? Can I make your business have less outages, which causes you to make more money? So I don't like talking money. I like showing what I can do for someone, and then the money thing seems to work it out. But I always say, here's where I'm at. But Eric, your point is right. Don't make yourself an expense. Don't make yourself look like a burden. Make yourself look like a solution. Now, how would you guys answer that?
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree with you. It's what value do you bring to the organization? And
the salary is important, but I'm focused on the job at hand. The salary is going to come. I mean, I'm looking for market, type of value. But I'm really focused on the opportunity. Even the salary is going to kind of come to you without really explicitly throwing a number out, maybe, and then it working to your disadvantage.
Right. In some states, you cannot. There's a law that was passed. I think it was maybe a few years ago.
3 years ago, 4 years ago.
Yeah, there's a law passed in New York that states you cannot ask a candidate what their base salary is. So that kind of ended, and it's interesting because I used to get positions that were paying 100, and then I used to find somebody that was at a company for 15 years. So they didn't get the increase of when, the normal increase of when you jump jobs every 3 years is 10%. The normal increase of when you stay at a job every year is like 2%, 3%.
Yeah.
So if I would get a role paying 100K, and then I would send a candidate that was making 70, 65, and they would get wind that the person was making 65 and say, well, all for 80. No, you're paying 100. Remember?
Yes.
Well, we can't justify a 40K jump. And that was a real thing. That was a total real thing back many, many years ago. So now in New York and in New Jersey, it's what is the person's expectation? So I try not to let someone know that they're at 140 on the base or whatever it is, because I just like to state the expectations.
And that makes sense. And I knew you guys were so good when I was at MCI WorldCom, and you guys got me a job on Wall Street. I had 6 months experience, and you got me almost a 6-figure raise.
Yeah.
From my first job, from my MCI WorldCom job. So, but I was also pretty emotionally intelligent when I went into that interview, and you positioned me right. You pitched me right. And then they asked me what I was being paid, and I said, look, what I'm being paid now isn't necessarily as relevant as what I can do for you.
Yeah,
you flipped the script. I said, I practiced medicine before I went here. This is my first tech job. They hired me to be on a tactical team, and I'm now the lead architect for this entire division. So, what they're paying me is not relevant. That's why I'm here talking to you today. How can I better use my skill set? How can I make your business more efficient? How can you told me you've got some network outages? How can I solve those outages so you guys can trade more and make more money? And their eyes were like this. In fact, they walked me to the elevator and they said, we're going to be making you an offer. If we make you an officer and I go to HR and go to bat to get you a good salary, you're going to accept it.
Yeah.
And I said, yes. And then I spoke to Charlie 20 minutes later on my way home, which I had no idea how bad that drive for 45 miles was going to be from my house, because you guys sent me to New York for a big bank that offered me a job. And then you guys sent me to Jersey City to a trading firm, which offered me a job. And I'm like, oh, this is going to be easy to get home. I got home at 3:00 in the afternoon. It was nothing. The next day I tried to drive there and it was 4 hours. And I went, this is no fun. I hate this job.
Yeah.
So your way, the fact that you're able to deliver that and in such a way, it was so eloquent. Like you're basically telling them, yeah, I'm not telling you what I'm making. Go take a hike and give me the best offer you can. But your delivery on that was so beautiful. Like it was like, what could they say to that? And that's a skill set. Being able to flip the script and deliver it like that is it's important to learn. It really is, because you don't want to sound combative. Like you want to come across as just genuine and and say, you don't want to say, well, it's against the law for you to ask me that. Like, because then they're like, you want to be able to say just what you said. And it's really important to deliver it like that.
And to that, and then Chris is going to bring in a question. My students get extreme knowledge in how to control the interview. When someone asks you a question you don't know, how do you redirect it? When someone asks you one of these questions, how do you redirect it? So it's up to you, the interviewee, to control the interview, to make the interview on your terms, your strengths, not somebody else's. Adam Say, really great student. He's actually over there in Asia. And he says, there's another prodigy. I mean, he's a really great guy. And he says, as an undergraduate, lack of experience, would it be a good idea to lower the salary of a given position and increase your chances to get the experience? Now, Adam, I don't like trying to sell myself too low. And the reason I don't like to sell myself too low is as follows. Your future salary is based upon your last salary in many cases. Plus, if you're willing to work for too cheap, people worry about you. Now, I think there's a difference between doing a volunteer internship for 3 to 6 months, a real good internship, get some experience. And Adam, we can make an internship for you. That's not a problem. I love working with young prodigies, and I'd rather you do the internship and get really good in the internship. And then when you're done school as an undergrad, have a job that's going to pay you well. I want you to walk in there and them say, who is this Adam Say guy? Wow. I didn't expect that. And that's what a lot of my young people do. They go in an interview and it's like, they're expected to be this person. And then when they interview them, like, whoa, what just happened? So, there's that perspective. So we've got a couple minutes left. So Adam, I hope we answered your questions. Are there any other questions that are out there? And if you guys want to talk about any jobs, I want you to know, or how to reach you, or things that are important to you guys, because I know you guys offer an incredible service. Actually, let's get your feedback on the question as well.
Go ahead, Chris.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I can sit and answer these questions all day long. It's just having so many experiences for over 20 years. Like I can talk all day. But these are great questions. Like I said before, I'm always available. Reach out to me. Don't hesitate. You can call me. You can send me a LinkedIn message. Send me an email. And I'm definitely much better one-on-one. As you can see, I love to talk, and I would love to help out in any which way that I can. And most of all, building relationships. That's what's most important. Just standing out amongst everybody else is so important. It's how it's how we built the business. It's becoming like a real person, and not just a not just a name out there in the internet world.
Yeah, any help that we can give.
And then I want to answer Adam's next question, and I have a couple of ideas. So Adam says, and I know we kind of touched on this earlier, but I'm not sure which time Adam's even awake, because I know where he's at, and it's probably the middle of the night for him. Another question is how to tackle these job descriptions with jack of all trades than any of the experiences. I personally would find out what they really want. That's why I generally use recruiters. And if I'm not using a recruiter, I'd find out the company if possible. I'd find out from other people in the company what they actually need in their job, so you can be prepared.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And Joe White, who's over there in England. I think he's from Jamaica, but he's over there in England. And Joe Wright is saying, when interview, you still have to know what you're worth. Yes, you must know your strength. You must know what you're worth. So if you guys had a good time, if you could type IT Accel in the chat box. So, everybody knows, they're not being paid to be here. They're doing this to help enhance the opportunities for the cloud architect community, the cloud engineering community, the DevOps community. These people place my students all the time. They have for 2 decades now, or almost 2 decades. I love working with them. So these are the folks from IT Accel. They are extremely good recruiters. They're extremely well connected. Chris has been popping up their email at info@itaccel.com. I can see people are starting to type in IT Accel. I want other people to know, if you're enjoying this, type IT Accel. Click the like, share this with somebody else. I'm going to continue to bring you the best and brightest. I'm going to invite you guys back in 2 weeks. I hope you'll join me And I'd love to have you guys every couple of weeks, maybe every 2 weeks, to really connect with the community.
Sure.
When you guys have jobs, I want you to post them. And if you guys have a lot of really good jobs, you know what? Call me. I'll literally come online for 15 minutes and we can discuss them with you.
Yep.
I want to know that the cloud community gets referred to the best. You know, we work really hard to basically provide free certification training. Now, certification training is only a percentage of what's necessary, but we work really hard to provide free certification training to give people a chance. We work a lot with the developing world. We work with so many great people, basically in the US, in the UK, across Africa, across India, in Asia. We are really lucky. I'm just so lucky to do this. I've worked with you guys for 20 years. As you know, I've always been grateful. Every time I called you guys, it was, wait, I got another rock star I want you to talk to. And
we appreciate you, Mike, too.
I really appreciate a lot.
Yeah.
Really, we've always been aligned in thinking, and it's so nice to have this relationship for all of these years.
And anyone out there that needs help, any guidance, want to have a conversation, feel free to shoot us an email. You can connect with us on LinkedIn. Any employers that have any tough to find, openings, we can help you. Feel free to just reach out to us.
And follow up if we don't get back to you, or just keep following up. So in today's world, there's so many different avenues to communicate, whether it's social media, email. Like, we're just getting so much volume. So please follow up.
Yeah.
And just looking at the people that are here. So Alex is from Greece, like me. Joe's Jamaican. Ariona's, I think he's in a country called Benin, or he's in Gabon, but he's in Africa near Nigeria. Mohammed, I forget where Mohammed's at. Kenny's over in Asia. Ravinder's, I believe, over in India. Evo's over in Hungary. Reginald is in the US. Joe Millen, I'm not sure. Jeannie's from Ethiopia and was actually taking my classes in Ethiopia, even though she's living in the US. John Ojo's Nigerian, living in the UK. So GZ, Shapur, also from a different region. So the point is like, I love that you guys were here. I am really grateful. Oh, Joseph's from Ghana, living in the USA. Ahmad is from Pakistan. So how awesome is it to get a community?
Awesome. Actually, we weren't able to get into our office this week. We all had to work from home because our office is on 39th and Park, right outside of Grand Central Station in New York City. And there was the UN?
The UN General Council.
Oh, forget it. Yeah. It took Eric 4 hours to get in. He called everyone and said, "Turn around, go home, do not attempt this."
I know New York City, and I know those days.
Madhouse. It was a madhouse. And we have so many consulates on our block, right?
So all of the embassies are right there, and just between all of the random road closures and all of the not caravans, the motorcades. Thank you.
And the president was speaking a few days ago too. It was a nightmare.
Yeah.
So we're all home this week.
So so that makes total sense to me. Oh wow, Dare. I would assume Dare is Nigerian. Yes, Nigerian, but living in Scotland right now. I think this is really great.
Yeah.
But we have an incredible number of people from obviously Americans. We have an incredible number of English people. I find it fantastic to have this many people from all over the world, from all walks of life.
Yep.
Mohammed's from Somalia. Ayo, obviously that's a Nigerian name. But whether you're in Houston, whether you're in New York, whether you're in Florida like me, whether you're in Canada, we want to bring the best and brightest. So everyone, I want to thank you guys so much.
And this is our first session, so it can only get better. It can only get better.
We're going to try to do one every other week.
Yep.
But if you guys have anything that's big and you want me to promote it, we've got massive distribution channels. And for people like you that I trust, that I know that are going to take really good care of any of my students, that's great. I've got hundreds of students that came to me when they were certified, and I said, certification's nothing, that we put through a 500-hour cloud architect career development program. So when you've got people that need them, I've got plenty to supply you. I've got them in New York, I've got them in California, I've got them in London, I've got them in Florida, Chicago. There's not a city that we don't have. So employers, if you need somebody, you can reach out to me, and I'll be referring or reach out to IT Accel, and they're them. I also know some other people in different areas as well, because, you know, I've got to have people for different countries where I've got students, but
Absolutely.
here all the time. And we want to do anything we can to help you with your career. Jawad is really nice. He joined my program a few weeks ago. So I've got a class that starts in 2 minutes, but a lot of my students are on this call. So E. Will says, what do I think about the job market in Florida? It's less good than other places, but Florida is growing very, very rapidly.
It really is.
New York is fleeing to Florida.
Yes.
New Jersey is fleeing to Florida.
Yep.
Philadelphia is fleeing to Florida, and California is fleeing to Texas and Florida.
That's right.
So as is Seattle, Washington. So lots and lots and lots of places here.
Cool.
Thank you
Excellent.
all. I will
Great.
sync up back with you guys later today. And I look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks, but I'll definitely call you guys later.
All right.
Sounds great.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Take care.
Thanks.
Wonderful session. Thanks.
Bye.